Look who's here, young people. It's none other than Duke Fartknocker.
The show that started off both Cartoon Network and Adult Swim, which is a whole nother story. Space Ghost, the host with the most, is a weird show to talk about because of its premise, its style, its transition to Adult Swim, and the inspiration for many Adult Swim shows that used forgotten Hanna-Barbera characters and did totally different things with them. And even the characters within the show got their own shows, like Brack with the Brack Show and the prototype versions of the Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Space Ghost Toast to Toast is a parody of a talk show, kinda like an animated version of Eric Andre, which was also shown on Adult Swim, which also was inspired by Space Ghost, the guy who's gonna roast. In this talk show, Space Ghost and his friends interview celebrities by making them feel uncomfortable and then going off script. That is, if there was a script to begin with. My favorite episode is where Space Ghost interviews Bjork, because he is just as weird, if not weirder than the show itself.
Yeah.
It later transitioned from the talk show premise to utter nonsense one-off stories about the guys working on the show, which is the consistent style of Adult Swim shows of old. My personal opinion on this show differs a lot depending on what is going on and what mood I'm in. I think the novelty works better in Eric Andre because of the edge that it is live action. I like that every season gets visually more disturbing and chaotic, and the fact that it's also a hidden camera show where they always go over the line. Space Ghost feels safer in contrast, and the humor relies more on the silent awkwardness and its inconsistency, which I know is its charm, but I personally don't vibe with it all the time. I know Space Ghost, the boast, the nose, the blows, the blow, has its hardcore fan, but I don't feel like it's giving off the Cartoon Network vibe. And it makes a whole lot sense when it went to Adult Swim. Heck, the most interesting thing about the Space Ghost celebrities to boast and host and close to blow, blah 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 is that the most people discovered that character in this show rather than the actual Hanna-Barbera show. Kinda like Harvey Birdman. This is a B kind of show for me.
I think it's much more along the lines of a fairy tale than it is straightforward science fiction.
Whatever, Professor.
Remember when I said I wouldn't talk about anthology shows except for the one? Well, this is the exceptional one. Unlike these ones. What a Cartoon, created by Fred Seibert, was a show of original pilots that would eventually become most of the shows I'm talking about here. Fred Cybertron would later make another anthology show for Nickelodeon called Oh Yeah! Oh Yeah! Cartoons, which means he is responsible for jump-starting many careers of many cartoonists. Also, when writing this, I discovered he also made Fred Ritter, because it's in the name. I'm not gonna discuss the greatest CN shows here, because I'm gonna be talking about them either way in the other segments. And personally, I think the most interesting aspect of the anthology are the one-offs. Examples being Larry and Steve, the Family Guy prototype, as it was made by Seth MacFarlane. I guess it shouldn't count as one-off as it became a show, but under a new name with totally different characters and a totally different channel and
Look, this is your landlord. You still haven't retained my weed whacker.
The Adventures of Captain Buzz Cheapley. This one doesn't have anything major facts about it. It was just shown many times on the channel and it's a personal favorite of mine.
Is this the end of our heroes? No.
Mina and the Count, created by Rob Renzetti, who also made My Life as a Teenage Robot. This is the only short that got more than one episode in 2 separate TV channels. The other being Nickelodeon's cartoons. You know, I think Renzetti really likes the works of Osamu Tezuka. Malcolm and Melvin. The legendary Ralph Bakshi made this and he hates it. It's kinda like how Danny Antonucci wanted to try to make children's show, but something went terribly wrong.
What should I do with him?
Punish him here, dear.
There are also shorts that feature Dino from the Flintstones, cause we can't forget the Hanna-Barbera roots that this entire studio is based on. It's only fair that I put this show in B, cause half of the shorts are unique and later define the studio that it is today, and the other half is weird shit like Tales of Warm Paranoia.
Filthy children!
Back to the lab again.
Dexter's the Lab, or as I like to call it, Dexter's Lab. It's probably one of the first shows I watched on Cartoon Network. Well, that or Thomas the Tank Engine. I've also seen a lot of it in both English and my native language, Icelandic.
This is the A to of Iceland.
This was Genndy Tartarovsky first and not the last show he would make for the studio, and it happened to be my favorite of his works. I haven't watched Primal as I'm writing this. This show is about Dexter, boy genius, and the tales of his invention going awry, and his sister Dee fucking everything up with her ballet. Other characters include Mandark, the arch rival to Dexter, and Dexter's parents, mom and dad. There are other memorable characters, but most of the time they appear very infrequently. Sorry Kusa Lagu Pa Goop.
Bye-bye, you'll never see me again.
The show has such chaotic energy that I feel is very unique to CN itself. Every episode in the first 2 seasons tell these cautionary tales of a boy with great intellect, but every success leads to a greater failure that leads to either the lab exploding and one time the earth itself. It sometimes gets kinda melancholic, which is something Genndy is very good at with his other shows. Some of my favorite episodes are the Robot Mom, the Speed Racer episode, and the last episode of season 2 where they go to Japan and we see Genndy go full leap. And again, it won't be the last time. There are also 2 recurring shorts in between episodes with Dial M for Monkey and Justice Friends. The monkey one tells about the Dexter's Lab monkey who has superpowers and saves the world, and it gets really weird. There's a character who wants to fuck the monkey, and another character called the Silver Spooner, and he sounds like this.
Go no further! Your efforts are in vain! I am the Silver Spooner! I'm gay!
Then there is Justice Friend, which was Teen Titans Go before Teen Titans Go, and it's kinda genius. They made a rock and roll version of Thor and called him Valhallan. If that's not genius, then I don't know what is. I'm guessing that Justice Friend was popular enough to be integrated into Powerpuff Girls, or Genndy just put it in the show when he was working on that show as well. Honestly, I would put this in S if it were not for the 3rd and 4th season, which were renewed episodes after the show ended with the TV movie Eco Trip in 1999. Genndy did not work on these episodes. Instead, they were supervised by Chris Savino, who made The Loud House and Did a Bad. The 3rd and 4th season are not the worst thing in the world, and they don't make my blood boil. I'm not a cartoon reviewer.
This film takes place less than a year after the September 11th terrorist attacks.
But they are kinda boring. Classic golf short is a great example of why. There are a few episodes in there that stand out, like the Wacky Races one and the one with the weird anime dude, but that is not a lot. I give this show a high A.
There is gloom and doom.
Indeed is womb.
Now, here's Big Bag.
Big Bag is a preschool show that I don't think I have the brain function to dissect because it's a show made for toddlers. Then I realized that preschool shows are like every other form of media and should be judged on how well it functions for its intended audience. But wait, I hear people ask, you are not the intended audience for a show for babies. True, but I was a baby once, so I can use that as a reference. I did watch Story Explorer,
Thomas the Tankin Dankin,
Sesame Street, Engie Benji. So I think I'm qualified to tell my 50 kroners on the matter. Speaking of Sesame Street, although Big Bag was aired on CN, it was produced by CTW, which would later just be called CW. With that said, Big Bag is just a vanilla version of Sesame Street, which is the weirdest description I can give this show. Next has a very similar format to the Sesame Street season I watched as a kid. You know, the animated intro, the funny animated shorts, and also this guy. Unlike Sesame Street, Big Bag animated sketches are 5-minute long, since season 1 episodes are worth 50 minutes long. That's the length of TV specials. In the end, I think this show is neat for what it brings. The puppets are whatever, but the animated shorts are more endearing to me. B for better than I thought. What really surprised me about this show is that it was aired on Cartoon Network. I saw this show kinda late when I moved out of the city to the country. Although most CN shows I saw after the 90s, I didn't watch them on the actual channel, but that's more of the 2000 retrospective. So yeah, the real... oh shit, the computers... oh, fuck! Oh my god, the fucking computer's battery is almost dead. I gotta... oh no! So yeah, the real Adventures of Jonny Quest is the version of the character most people are most familiar with. Like this Batman was the most well-known version of the character. The version from Jellystone where he's probably in a relation with Hachi is my favorite one that I didn't know I needed in my life. But yeah, the show is kinda wild. For me, the most real thing about the show is how some subject matters are handled and how characters are written. They're not just archetypes from the old 60s shows, they're well-rounded three-dimensional characters. Okay, Rex Spannon is still an action hero spewing one-liners every second.
Pa always told me that it's not polite to hit a lady, but then again, Miss Julia, you're no lady.
And Hachi, though not as stereotypical as he was in the old show, still has weird quirks that make you raise an eyebrow. But those are very few nitpicks. One of my favorite characters is one of the villain of the show, Jeremiah Surd, a wheelchair-bound man who wants to live in the digital world of Questworld that honestly I thought looked good back in the day, and it's at this point where I learned that I don't mind CGI since Toy Story was one of the first movies I ever saw.
My eyes! My eyes!
Also, even though this was my introduction to Jonny Quest, I still had the interest to do research on other adaptations. I figured out that Rex's daughter was not an original character for the show, but for a TV special 3 years before. And as a character, I was surprised to see that she wasn't a bickering type of character, but nope. She's pretty cool. Also, the show is just a fun 90s action show that I feel like has aged pretty well.
Jonny Quest. Jonny Quest. This is the life of a boy named Jonny Quest.
I've experienced my fair share of Flintstones media, a handful of episodes, the 2 live-action movies, TV specials, including The Christmas Carol, and the one where the kids grow up and get married. Barney, your son is fucking my daughter! Bam, bam, bam. I am not sorry for this. And I played that shit-ass PS1 on-rail bowling game, but other times I see the Flintstones in cameos nowadays because Seth MacFarlane Flintstone reboot sounds like a terrible idea.
What's the animal version of an iPod?
Now let's talk Caved Kids, a 8-episode spin-off miniseries about Pebbles and Bam Bam going on magical adventures that are probably their wild imaginations. But then again, aliens, time travel, Johnny Bravo, and Grim Reaper exists, so this might as well be canon. And I don't think I ever saw a single episode where I was a baby child. In this miniseries, they are still children where they barely had characters, so this show has much to live up to for the hardcore Flintstone fans who want that character development for tiny babies who are mostly extension of Fred, Velma, Barney, and Betty's characters developments. Okay, the show is fine, it's just Rugrats with Flintstone flavoring. It's a rather tame version of Rugrats, a show that got weird a lot. I mean, the show is weird, but not Rugrats TV show weird, and especially not Rugrats movie weird. So in general, this is a fine filler in the background for the children, but nothing mind-blowing compared to the other Flintstone media, like the PS1 game I talked about, and I still own. Maybe, I haven't found it yet. This is a C show.
Sinbad the Sailor.
You probably didn't see that one coming, and neither did I. Created by Fred Wolf Films, the same guys who made Puff the Magic Dragon, this show,
Bond, James Bond, Jr.,
and other things. Sinbad the Sailor probably has got to be the most obscure Cartoon Network show of them all. It's so obscure that I could only find 3 out of 26 episodes to watch. I'm pretty confident that these 3 episodes give off the vibe and feel of the entire show unless I'm missing out on an epic overarching plot that hasn't been archived anywhere online. The show tells the many adventures of Sinbad the Sailor, and I think it's kinda neat. The adventures of the characters land on are indeed fantastic, and the main trio of Sinbad, Boy, and Cat are a likable bunch. I thought when I saw the boy, I figured he would be this annoying, golly gee, I'm better than all you scrubs kind of a character, but he's not like that, and I respect that. I also like the theme song a lot.
Sinbad finds mystery and Sinbad finds danger. The fantastic voyages of Sinbad the Sailor.
When it comes to Sinbad the Sailor, the DreamWorks movie and the Comedian were all I knew, and now I can add this on the list. I can't say more about this show because of the lack of accessibility, so it's alright I guess. B. I don't know how a show about a man who lives with his mom and fails to hit on girls is a classic, but it somehow worked. It actually surprises me that the best episodes were the very early ones. One of them being the Scooby-Doo crossover.
My glasses! I can't see without my glasses!
My glasses! I can't be seen without my glasses!
There's also a crazy amount of celebrity cameos later on in the show, and they kinda get out of hand from Weird Al to Shaq.
Hey, Shaquille?
You can call me Shaq.
Yeah, whatever.
Who appears in the last episode of Season 4. A renewed season, and it's probably the least jarring of the CN renewed seasons. One episode in Season 4 is a crossover with Flintstones, where he wants to have sex with his daughter. Johnny, stop fucking my daughter! Oh, mama. There are actually 2 episodes I want to give big highlights because they are a big character development for Johnny Bravo, which is not something I would think happens in the show. The Christmas and Valentine specials. One tells the story of Johnny's selfishness during the holidays.
Besides, I've got your list right here.
Whoa, give me that!
But Johnny, we came all the way up here so you could ask Santa for your free presents.
Yeah, well, things change.
And the other one explores his potential true happiness, and they make me feel something for Johnny.
1, 2, 3.
Usually I think the show is funny at its best, but a little mad at its worst. There's also Johnny Bravo Goes Bollywood, which feels like a parody animation you would find on Newgrounds, but when you think about it, it fits better than whatever the hell that was. If asked where I ranked it, I would say a very high A.
Oh my god! What's wrong with your face?
Chicken and the cow? Chicken and the cow?
Cow and Chicken is the weirdest show in this retrospective so far. The characters, the art style, the plot, all pure insanity. I guess it was one of those shows trying to write the success of Ren and Stimpy, a show I saw very late and only 2 episodes, so I have no strong opinion on it. In comparisons, I might like this show more. Don't get me wrong, there is something so deranged about the setting here, with everyone being completely insane and the dynamic between the main characters of Cow and Chicken giving off creepy incest vibes. Let's just say if they were human and nothing else changed, it would be more creepy.
Well, you always do. I've been refilling the same carton for years.
It's so funny that the brother-sister dynamic is more weird than the actual devil who has a huge ass. Speaking of, the red guy is obviously the best part of the show because he makes the episodes more fun, and an episode without him is just wrong.
Also, I'm naked.
He's also a recurring character in I Am Weasel, which started off as a segment similar to the monkey and the superhero parts in Dexter's lab, but was more popular enough to last 1 more year than Cow and Chicken. I'm putting these together not just because it's made by the same guy, but more so because it's practically the same show in the same world, and we will get to 2 other shows like that. I Am Weasel is a less insane show compared to the Ox and Fowl show, with a rivalry dynamic of a weasel and a baboon that is more accessible compared to whatever that show is about. You might say it's a nitpicky to say that I Am Weasel can be very formulaic, with Weasel being the best at everything and Baboon trying his best to be good at anything, but if the formula works, then shut up. Both shows get a B. I like them both fine as they are.
The city of Townsville. But enough about that.
Finally, we're getting into the good stuff. I think Craig McCracken is my favorite cartoonist because he made some peak stuff that may go underappreciated, but still has its fan. like me. While I do like Wonder Over Yonder and Kid Cosmic, I have to be a little predictable and say that Powerpuff Girls is its best. From its characters, music, art style, animation style, and my personal favorite aspect, the weird dark moment that may have traumatized me just a little bit. The episodes like the one where him makes everyone angry at the girls, the one where the girls go to the worst future timeline, and the goddamn zombie magician. Just a little trauma, nothing special. Season 1 to 4 is the perfect run, where you will find your all-time favorite episodes and moments from the shows. But season 5 and 6 is the moment where you could feel the show running out of steam at this point. I know that there's a year gap between season 4 and 5, but I can't tell if it also got renewed. But then I saw Chris Savino's name again, and now it made all the more sense. But in comparison to Johnny Bravo, Forgettable Season 4, and Dexter's boring Season 3 and 4, Powerpuff Girls Season 5 and 6 are the best of both shows, because even if the show itself wasn't as good as the old episodes, there were still a handful of episodes considered classics, one of them being a musical about communism. And I'm a big fan of musicals. There was also the theatrical origin movie that slaps really hard. Few specials, including the Christmas one, the series finale, where Mojo Jojo sings a cover of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Everybody wants to rule the world. Yes, this is real. And the 2014 Danced Pants special with a very stylish CGI paper art style. I could go back and watch this show all over again, and nothing would change my opinion on it. This show gets an S.
Once again, the day is saved. Thanks to the power.
But I think I have to talk about the anime and the 2016 reboot show. Otherwise, I feel like I'm missing out something important in this retrospective. The anime called Powerpuff Girls C is a weird one. It's in this weird category that's about anime based on Western media, which I only know 3 shows. Stitch, Beast Wars Seconds, I made a video about it, and this show. So an anime based on an American show that was heavily inspired by anime should be a recipe for success. But by the time Powerpuff Girls C came out, anime had changed a whole lot compared to the animes of old. Like, this show is not bad, it's its own thing, and that's cool and all, but it's kind of toothless. It kind of feels like a parody of anime, you know? The most interesting thing about this show is the weird redesigns of the characters. Mojo is nothing but a cloak, Fuzzy Lumpkins is voiced by Scott McNeil, and he could play in the worst thing in the world, and he would still be the best thing about it.
No one would dare to fight or challenge me.
Him is a jester and voiced by Frieza. Gang Green Gang and the Amoeba Boys have female members for each group, which is based. Apart from the ones I mentioned, everyone else feels this very samey, kinda like most modern anime. If you like how the show looks and you don't feel uncomfortable when watching the transformation, well, the latter part I can't help you with that. You should speak to a professional. And this show is for you. For me, it's a C.
What the hell? Get out of here, jockey!
The 2016 show is one of the most hated shows ever made, and I've only watched 3 episodes before I got the idea for this video. But to get some more insight, I found Blaze the Movie Fan's top 12 favorite episodes since he's a fan of the show, and all the more power to him. And after watching these episodes, I have to be completely honest and say I never felt such emptiness inside. Of all the episodes I watched, I liked 1/3 of one episode, and that is not great. The best thing about this show is the opening that has better animation than the entire show, but gives off a vibe of a totally different show. People like to compare this show to Teen Titans Go, and I think that's a dumb thing to do. My hot take is that Teen Titans Go is a funny show, but I'll talk about that next time. There's an uncanny feeling on how this show moves, sound. and these articles that the show is trying to say something more than it already is. Like the old show did have messages in it, but they were never the selling point. The 2016 show feels kinda like season 5 and 6 of the old show where it was running out of steam, but here it's actually worse. A show that wants to be a character driven but also wants to be like the old show with a punching, and somehow both of these conflicting tones try to appeal to both, but it doesn't do one of those things right. So for me, it gets a D.
We're gonna let you see your tits and vagina. What the hell?
Man, I love this show. Made by Danny Antonucci.
Fuck America.
The man behind classics like Brother Grunt and this animated short about a butcher cutting his hand off. Cartoon Network decided he should make a kid show. That led to one of the most beloved Cartoon Network shows out there, and still to this day is looked back on with fondness. I can't imagine anyone not liking.
I hate Ed, and Eddy.
Forget you heard that. Everything about the show is nigh on perfect for its uniqueness. The animation with the outlines that are constantly in motion, the bajillion sound effects they use for slapstick and such. The show has 13 characters, but no background characters, giving the show this very focused yet surreal setting. Also, the dialogue between these kids are often not written with them being kids in mind, which leads to the best part of the show, which are the crazy ass quotes.
Life has many doors, Ed boys.
Most of them coming from Rolf.
Poppycock! Curse this monkey ritual of English words!
The only thing I don't like about the show are minor nitpicks. Sarah is the worst out of all the cul-de-sac kids. The first episode felt very weak, but that's just the first episode syndrome.
Beware of the toucher! Serial toucher on the loose!
And Eddy can sometimes be very unlikable. I know that's the point of him, but it sometimes just comes off as not funny and just mean. The only thing I know that fans have nitpicked about the show that I personally don't mind is when the last 2 seasons, well, season 6 is only 1 episode, but let's not get into every minor detail. It changed the setting from the cul-de-sac to school, but I felt like this was an organic flow of time in the S-world, but I guess some fans don't wipe that decision. And so it ended with 6 seasons and a movie. Insert community clip here.
6 seasons and erections. What?
But personally, the reason I love the show is when I saw the TV movie finale, and it might be the greatest finale I've ever seen. I mean, okay, there are others, but this is special for me. The show like this never felt like it would have a finale that would conclude with a character development for the most unlikable main character, Eddy. Like I said, never liked Eddy out of the trio. Ed is a lovable goof and Double D is hella gay. But the fact that this movie exists to give Eddy an arc is overwhelmingly genius in my opinion. Most Cartoon Network shows don't get a bookend finale like this, and that's why this show is perfect and gets an S. Also, fuck the kids are dead theories and check out Bro Show for some cringe.
I'm pregnant.
Take off your pants and underwear if you're wearing any.
What?
Courage the cowardly dog. Courage the cowardly dog.
I didn't watch this show a lot when I was young, so I might almost missed it when it aired and saw like 1 or 2 episodes. The one I remember the most was the one with the macaroni.
More macaroni.
Now I watched it all, and I get all the love this show gets, but I'm not as crazy about them as the rest are. Oh gee, am I Phantom Strider now?
I hate
Courage the Cowardly Dog.
There are a handful of episodes that I genuinely like a lot, as my appreciation for horror-themed media has increased the older I get. There's the aforementioned macaroni episode, the one with the alligator who turns people into puppets, and also the classic Return Slap. Also the pilot short with an alien chicken that is quite freaky, and I also learned that it was nominated for Academy Awards but lost to Wallace the Gromit at close shave, which is not as bad when you are competing with the short about a scary robot dog. Courage is probably the goodest boy there is in fiction, who is going through a mental breakdown every episode when fighting demons, ghosts, and ducks just to protect old people who live in the desert, or
In the middle of nowhere.
I also like Muriel and Eustace for completely different reasons. All in all, Courage is one of the best CN shows of all time that I like, and I wished I watched more of it when it came out. This would not be complete if I didn't mention the Scooby-Doo crossover that came out in 2021.
Excuse me?
We try to answer all the mysteries of the show. It's a weird premise, and the answer we got left us with even more questions. It doesn't ruin the show unlike another Scooby-Doo movie I know of. This is an S-tier show, and I won't hear the end of it if I put it lower than that. Now we reach Mike, Lou, and Aw, a show I don't care about in the slightest. I believe that 99% of people who see this video have never heard of Mike, Lou, and Aw. Before I discovered Sinbad the Sailor, I thought this show was very much forgotten, but it's much easier to find these episodes around the web. I learned that 2 out of the 3 creators are both called Mikhail, and that's the most interesting thing about the show. This show is very boring, and I can't even find anything else to say about the show. Every time I watch an episode, I feel like my energy is slowly fading. I don't care if you find the intro catchy. I've heard much better. Man, I'm ending this video on Mike, Lou, and fucking Aw, of all things. I hope in part 2, whenever that comes out, there won't be a show more boring than this. D for Days Nuts.
Somehow, I never felt this was a real show. Like, I saw 2 episodes when I was young, and it never aired again. I saw more Courage than I did Sheep in the Big City. After rewatching it, it's alright. If I didn't piss people off by not seeing Courage when I was young, I would probably be crucified for this opinion that I think that this show is okay. I mean, it's funny from time to time, but not that hilarious. To me, I'm not here to split facts. Yet. I mean, I liked some of the running gags, even though they never ran. Why did I even write this part of the script? That's the kind of humor the show is. Very on-the-nose wordplay, which I'm guilty of from time to time for making. A handful of characters that are noteworthy, like the sheep, who is a big mood, the farmer, the general, the mad scientist.
I'm not mad. I'm angry!
I don't hate this show. There's a difference. It's still a personal retrospective, so I'm not putting it in an S. I would preferably rank this A, because I should not be blind to something that is doing a good job, but that's gonna be the only time I'm gonna be nice.
Sheep in the big city.
I recently learned that the creator is a writer for the Cuphead show, a show I think is good, and I can see that he has improved. With that said, Time Squad is another show I barely watch and is very forgettable, which is this show Greatest Sin. In concept, this show could genuinely be very funny with the whole learning history angle, a la the likes of Animaniacs or Hysteria, to all 5 people that remember that show, but I generally think that it only holds up on aesthetic alone. Man, you guys want to talk smack about cow arts? When you mofos can look at all these shows and tell me this era was any different? The characters they exist. Otto is an orphan boy who knows history, and that's it. Larry 3000 is just that Star Wars robot, is voiced by that guy from Rhapsody Street Kids.
Shut that door!
Buck is voiced by Rob Paulsen. It is genuinely a very versatile performance, which I appreciate, but I have no thoughts on this character whatsoever. The first and final episodes are the only episodes that I remember the most, because they are both about Otto and the orphanage he comes from, and everything in between is just, hey look, it's Sigmund Freud, or hey look, it's Ivan the Awesome. Okay, I like that one since it was the first episode I saw. I don't know how much this show is liked by the majority, but for me, it's a C.
We did not copy their show, alright?
Jack was out.
Jack.
Yo, Jack was Jack.
It's Gandy time again with his best show. Again, I have not seen Primal as I'm writing this. This show is one of a kind for Cartoon Network in terms of storytelling and even the art style, though it's similar to Dexter, Powerpuff, and Time Squad, but still looks more unique. I'm not gonna retell what the show is about, because Mako does that every single episode. So yeah, the main character of Jack is best described as a reactionary protagonist, which is not a bad thing per se, as he does show off his quirks to be more interesting. But that is nothing compared to the antagonist of the show, Aku. He might just be one of, if not the greatest TV cartoon villain I've ever seen. The show is called Samurai Jack, but Aku in his present is much of a main character as Jack is. He is the ultimate evil that craves destruction and misery of the innocent, creating a world of fear and death. But he's also a silly goofball who can order a pizza extra thick or tell propaganda stories to children. It's hilarious. It's the perfect story of a world ruled by evil, and one man who needs to rise to justice against a world that is against him. And even if the show isn't about them, there are one-off characters and stories that are just as good, if not the best written stories. One being about Jack finding a robot bounty hunter, but told from the robot perspective, and it gives you big feels. The first 4 seasons are gold, but the 5th season, which came out 13 years later after the show ended in 2004 and was broadcast on Adult Swim, was interesting, but many fans were split on it. Unlike season 1 to 4 that all told one-off stories, season 5 is one overarching story that is all about reaching a conclusion of the whole premise. Which on paper, yeah, for hardcore fans, that is something we always wanted, but execution wise, 10 episodes may not sound that much, but these are 20-minute episodes each, where season 1 to 4 episodes are 11 minutes. Like, there are some aspects of season 5 I really like how Jack has ceased to age and has an internal conflict with himself, making him a fully developed character at this point. The introduction of the character Aki, she's a fine enough addition, who takes on the role of an antagonist but later develops into a protagonist. And Aku is still the same because Aku is perfect. It's just how these 10 episodes are paced makes it kinda weird experience, to be honest. If this was a movie, maybe I would complain about it less. Or maybe everyone would complain about it less. Though honestly, I think the ending is perfect. I thought for a second, writing about season 5, I would rank the entire show A, but when I think about it, nah, it's a S. We got another twofer, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy and Evil Con Carne, both made by Maxwell Adams. Grim and Evil both started as shorts that later on expanded into their own shows. Usually I go by chronological order in this retrospective, but I also added spin-offs, remakes, and in this case, a show made by the same guy and both fit in the same world. But in this case, I want to talk about Evil Con Carne first because I don't have a lot of things to say about this one since it's very short and the whole spoof of G.I. Joe doesn't go as far as horror. Like with Time Squad, this show drew me in only on statics alone, but unlike Time Squad, it was a fairly entertaining show since I generally liked the writing of Billy and Mandy. Frankly, I've forgotten most things that happened in this show, and one of the best characters in the show, being General Scar, later got integrated into Billy and Mandy, where he truly shines as the joke that he is. The others are fairly good, but with how short the show is, I generally think they would have also shine in their sister brother series. Is brother series even a thing? I'm just talking about how Billy and Mandy is better than Evil Con Carne, so let's just talk about that show instead. See, this dark comedy has made me smile so many times in my life. Some people describe this show as a lesser Courage, and I think that is an insult to Maxwell's work, as he wants to tell a comedy that has horror in it, as opposed to Courage that does the vice versa. The first season, which was the short for Grim and Evil, told more creepy stories with a creepier tone, as opposed to season 2 that starts off with a Harry Potter parody, and that became a recurring joke, and arguably that's the point where the show got its own identity. This show has so many great characters, with one exception, Billy. He can be very annoying at times, and not in a funny way, but everyone else, perfect. The episodes are generally funny and just a good time altogether. There are some stinkers, but you can look past that. The show also had 4 TV movie specials. The first one, Big Bookie Adventure, is no joke one of my favorite CN specials. It has a chaotic energy of the show cranked up to 11 and serves as a perfect finale, with the characters having grown in their own weird, unique ways. Wrath of the Spider Queen is okay. It's an origin story for Grimm that does contradict the show just a little bit, but it's okay. Then there's the crossover with K&D that was really good, though it has more K&D energy. And then there's Underfist, the failed spin-off Halloween special and pilot that wanted to take the most popular secondary characters and make them superheroes, which is kind of genius, but I think it worked as a one-off personally. This show lasted 6 seasons and it became kind of tiring, but for all the flaws, I liked most of it. This is an A show.
Look at me, buddy. Look at it.
Life is like a hurricane here in
Town.
This was a CN show based on the 1977 lithograph, whatever the hell that is. The show tells a tale of ducks who live in a town of ducks, not that one, and them living in constant fear of being eaten by alligators who live in a town next door. If that doesn't sound like the most flawed allegory of race wars, then I don't know what is. But seriously, this show is about Bill the duck who befriends Aldo the alligator, who doesn't want to cook sentient ducks anymore and just them living life in Ducktown. I used to watch this show a lot when it was on. I remember a handful of episodes that mostly revolved around the conflict of ducks and gators, which was a very out there idea for children show back then. But then again, any show that tackles any subject with some gray should be praised. See.
In the great hall of the Justice League.
It's time for a detective comic show, Justice League, and its 3rd, 4th, and 5th season, retitled Justice League Unlimited, are the 7th and 8th installment in the DCAU, which I have only seen 6 shows. Sorry, Static Shock and Zeta Project, I'm sure someone liked that one. This show was also my introduction to the Justice League and the DC world itself. You might say I'm a fan of this version of the characters as well. When I learned that the 3 of the founding members of the show were different versions, I couldn't care about the OG in the slightest. Hal Jordan is just a white guy who turned evil, Barry Allen is just a white guy who died, and Hawkman has too many backstories to a point that nobody can agree what it is. Honestly, Jon Stewart, Wally West, and Hawkgirl are arguably the best characters in the show, since they have the best mix of comedy and character development. Also diversity, but that's besides the point. Batsy and Soups already had shows for themselves and need to give the rest of the cast some screen time, but they still bring a lot to the show, especially Superman's arc, with his own show getting the conclusion it deserved, and Batman, although not as deep and rich as he was in his show, makes up for it with his coolness factor and genuinely funny moments. Oh, and Wonder Woman is alright, I guess. In comparison, I found her stories not that interesting, the exception where she turns into a pig, yeah, that happened, but I think she works best as a supporting character in the show for everyone else's stories. But my favorite character was and still is Martian Manhunter. He comes off as the strongest character, but still very vulnerable, a telepathic shape-shifting alien that is weak to fire. And if you're gonna argue that's a shitty weakness, have you read DC Comics before? Green Lantern was either weak to wood or yellow, Superman was weak to a green stone, and Wonder Woman, the strong female icon, was weak to being binded by her own weapon, by a man specifically. John Jones' weakness more relatable than anything. I mean, have you touched fire before? It hurts. The villains who have their first appearance in the show are fairly lame, except Ultra Humanite and Gorilla Grodd, who are both evil smart gorillas. A smart pattern. The only good villains are Lex Luthor and Joker, since they were pre-established villains and continue their story arcs from the other shows. Well, mostly Lex and his kryptonite cancer. Joker is just being silly as usual. The worst aspect of the show, personally, is that almost every episode is in 2 parts, with the exception of 3 3-parters and 1 Christmas episode. Season 1 has a lot of average episodes, and a few great ones, being Legends and Savage Times. Season 2, however, has a bundle of great episodes like Twilight, Tabula Rasa, A Better World, The Terror Beyond, Hereafter, Wild Cards, Comfort and Joy, and Starcrossed, which is like all of Season 2. I guess it's just that good. But let's talk about Justice League Unlimited, which may be the best DC show I've ever watched. The main 7 may not be as much of a focus, since the Justice League has expanded with 62 members. Holy shit! Okay, so like 9 members are already appeared before Justice League Unlimited, with Supergirl getting a major character arc, and like handful of new heroes get one-off spotlights like Booster Gold, Hawk and Dove, and Captain Shazam. Others become new protagonists for the show, like Green Arrow, Black Canary, Huntress, and Question who is the best. And then there are the rest who are just there, like Aztec, Vibe, Johnny Thunder, Elongated Man, and Sand. He's my favorite. The episodes here are now more The episodes here are now more episodic, and even some are follow-ups to the first 2 seasons. And there's also an overarching story about a government coup to take down the Justice League for what happened during
Justice League Season 2 finale and Superman series finale spoilers.
And another story about Lex Luthor, since he's a recurring figure in 3 of the DCAU shows. In fact, Unlimited also has the greatest episode of the entire DCAO being Epilogue, starring Terry McGinnis from Batman Beyond, that had a very traumatizing movie. Some fans have come together and said that Epilogue is more of a finale rather than a life and destroyer that feels a little rushed in some places. Imagine Avengers Endgame with just the action and none of the plot. Honestly, with that being the only flaw, I think both of these shows are just great and deserve an S.
Am I blue? Ain't these tears in my eyes telling you?
Whatever happened to
Robot Jones?
I'll tell you what happened. It was forgotten and cancelled. Well, how was the show? It's below average. That's it. Now, there are a few aspects of the show that stand out. Like the titular character has 2 voice actors. And by actors, I mean 1 voice actor and a text-to-speech program, because they wanted to emulate a robot voice.
I will not comply with that request.
But it only lasted 6 episodes that consist the entire season 1, and then was voiced by an actual flesh and blood boy, Bobby Block.
Greetings, school bus. I am ready to begin my human studies.
Whom I personally prefer over this.
Good morning, Dad Unit.
Because of the unappealing appeal of main character being voiced by a voice machine, they decided to redub the first 6 out of 13 episodes with Buddy Block.
Good morning, Mom Unit.
Out of 13 episodes, I can only think of one standing out and arguably being the best one, called Gender, where Robot Jones learns in the end that
girls and boys are basically the same.
Gender's a social construct, bitch!
Besides that, mostly all of the other episodes are generic school day life with your by-the-book morals at the end of the episode, where Jonesy learns more and more how to be human in his own unique way. The art style does stand out with its comic strip-esque style and the 70s music genre. The show has many different ideas, but makes a very uninspiring show, making the show a C.
Robot Jones!
Technology is just another thing to distract you from the real joys of life. Technology will kill you.
Hot take. Tiny Toons is better than Looney Tunes. With that out of the way, Baby Looney Tunes is a show that I don't understand why it exists. And every time I bring up Tiny Toons, they think I'm talking about this show. Ugh. You can tell I'm kinda bitter about that. Like the baby version of existing franchises is a genre that can work from time to time, and other times it just fills an optional quota that does not need to be filled. The Looney Tunes have been around for so long that they have almost done everything under the sun, and this outing is one of, if not the worst thing they have ever done. And what do I think? I watched like a handful of episodes when it aired, and yeah, it felt like there were other things I could have watched, like Shin-Chan rather than Lola Bunny in a diaper. But the worst thing the Looney Tunes have done? I don't know, when I think the worst thing Looney Tunes have done, there's a lot more I can think of. I like to point out that Baby Looney Tunes has an original character in the form of their babysitter, who is just some guy. Is assigned gifts of a YouTube avatar who talks about cartoons. I should know, I am one. This show gets a C.
That's all, folks.
It's He-Man time! Before Kevin Smith got his hand on the franchise and made people angry with Revelation and a kid-friendly show that may be better than the Weird Eye show, but nobody cares about that because it's a baby show for babies. There was this show, and I watched it all the time when I was young. A very faithful reboot to the fever dream that was the Funimation show as opposed to the new He-Man. They even have those PSAs at the end of every episode that even though saying it out loud, it may sound it clashes with the serious tone, but it somehow works. In fact, the premise of He-Man is tackled in more interesting ways, with Skeletor's origin, Prince Adam dealing with his secret identity, and other action figures, I mean the masters of the universe, exploring their own self-worth and if they are more than just gimmick toys, like Mechaneck was one of the toys I actually owned when I was young. Show writers having the balls to put Stinkor in the show. And although the whole point of a show like this is to sell toys, it never feels toyetic. Well, except that one episode where they just get super armor, and season 2, but we'll get to that later. My favorite character is Many-Faces, who just happened to have an episode that I recorded on VHS back in the day. It was an episode about him dealing with his dual personality. Also, he has many faces. The most traumatizing moment for me personally was the season 1 finale, cause I thought the show was cancelled, and it ended with the good guys losing. But no, season 2 was just never picked up where I lived. Speaking of, I did watch all of season 2 at some point, but I forgot all about it. Mostly because I watched it all on YouTube when that was a thing you could do, and rewatched it again reminded me of why. Most of the time when a show goes from an episodic format to an overarching story, it gets praised for it. But for the 2002 He-Man, it doesn't get worse, but just forgettable and even more toyetic. It starts to focus more on ancient snake people who wore Skeletor in one episode. And the show kinda introduces Hordak, who is a looming threat up until the show abruptly ends. Also, if Hordak isn't having an identity crisis and has an unwholesome friendship with Entrappa, then I do not care. The only memorable episode is an origin story, The Power of Grayskull, and the only new cast member introduced is Fisto, who can't wait to fist Skeletor!
I'd sure like to fist him.
That clip never stops to make me laugh. And as I like to repeat myself, the last season is not weak enough to drag down the entire show. I give it an A.
Kids Next Door Battle Station!
I don't want to call this out early, but I think K&D is my favorite show of all time. Mr. Thomas Edward Warburton first made his impression on me with Pepper Ann, a show about kids in middle school dealing with school stuff, and I recently learned that after K&D, he wrote a children's book called 1,000 Times No about a toddler saying no. Man, I can't wait for that Embryo project. I may be joking, but the fact that I'm talking about K&D that is known for its grotesque nature, that may be the biggest turnoff for most people. But besides that, the show is stupid, but the good kind of stupid. Heck, the pilot is about the main cast fighting a codependent buffalo and walrus humans so they can swim in a swimming pool. Golly gee, were they smoking cigarettes when writing this? There's also the weird pilot Mr. Warburton made called Kenny and the Chimp, and I'm only talking about that because there's a character called Professor Triple Extra Large who was popular enough to come back to K&D. Okay, now on to the show. The premise and the setting is whatever your dumb baby brain can think of as long as it's fun. Star Wars with birthday cake? Sure. Dystopian future controlled by girls? Okay. Dracula who spanks naughty children? Okay, some ideas are weird. Like, one of the villains is just trying to sell children as food. But despite how stupid and weird the ideas are, the characters all take it 100% seriously, where the most of the comedy or the drama comes from. But sometimes the show does get serious, and it works surprisingly well. My favorite episode is with number 5, actually dealing with the fact that one day she will have to grow up and get her memories wiped. The biggest highlight of this show being taken 100% seriously comes from Operation Zero, which like Big Picture Show and Big Bookie Adventures is also one of my favorite Cartoon Network movies. It has it all. Action, drama, comedy, plot twist, and major feels. It might not be the series finale, but it almost comes close. The finale on the other hand is just as good, and the ending is just as sad. And even if the Stop the Galactic K&D project won't go anywhere, I'm still happy with what we got. This show gets an S, and I can't think of anyone say another what?
Codename Kids Next Door.
God damn it! Here it is, the other DC show that everyone loves for its cast, story arc, and very impressive but sometimes cringy anime art style, which was developed by the late great Derek J. Wyatt, who only started here but would expand his skill in other shows, but we'll talk about them when we get there. The best way to describe my thoughts on this show is to go through the characters and their arcs, which is kinda scatterbrained, but this is my retrospective, and I'll go on tangents when I feel like it. Robin, the leader and the least interesting member, gets his arc fighting against major villain Slade, which is the only version of Deathstroke I like. It's not that great, but a later episode, Haunted, was a better conclusion and made Robin just a bit interesting. Just a bit. Oh joy, it's Starfire, who is my favorite of the Titans, as in this version, not whatever the comics were doing. And despite there being 5 members and 5 seasons, he did not get an arc. Instead, we got Terra, the most controversial topic of the entire show. She follows a very similar story beat with a comic book counterpart, but made it a little more PG because of stuff that happens in the comic, and she is made more sympathetic, where the most hate for Terra comes from. Well, Detective Comics made a Judas Contract movie that's more faithful to Terra's character being a bitch, so there's that. Alas, poor Starfire, who got more weird and interesting episodes out of the entire show, but did not get an arc. I recommend reading about the unproduced 6th season and still pray that it will be a reality and not just the voice actors tweeting about it. Cyborg is a lively cyborg who most episodes revolve around him struggling with being a machine, but also gets an arc about going undercover in a school for villains and fights the headmaster Brother Blood, a more vanilla version of Robin Slade rivalry, although I prefer Cyborg over Robin because he's cooler. Not sure about Brother Blood though. I may like him here over whatever the comic version or versions are. I don't read comic books.
Teen Titans Go.
Raven Roth the Goth, the most popular character with the most popular one-off episodes. One includes her falling in love with a dragon who catfished her, and the darkest arc of the entire show about her daddy issues and the end of the world. It's not just the stakes are high, but she, compared to the rest of the Titans, gets the most development out of all the cast. In fact, this arc even took some elements, by elements I mean Slade, from season 1 and made them better. Beast Boy, the funny animal man's mascot, who gets the most comedy-focused episode like getting a job, going inside Cyborg's body, or the finale, also gets the last and a very campy arc of reuniting his old team Doom Patrol and fighting their arch nemesis, the Brotherhood of Evil, which includes almost every villain who appeared throughout the show, and more importantly, the Brain and his boyfriend Monsieur Mala, who is a gorilla. Oh look, 3 gorillas. Look, the reason I go on a tangent for some of these shows is simply because I watch more and have more to say compared to those I have barely watched, and it only depends on my reaction to such shows. As you can tell, Teen Titans was one of those shows I watched that did get a big reaction out of me. There are so many aspects of the show that I love and some I don't care about in the slightest. Examples being 2 out of 5 arcs, some one-offs, and Trouble in Tokyo that I can only say was there to make the Robin Starfire shippers happy and inspired the Zone Time cartoon. The finale was interesting. I wish I had an ending. So yeah, great show with some bumps here and there. It gets an A. Now let's get controversial. Oh boy, it's this show. The legends of its infamy are phenomenal. When the writers of a spin-off show say that they never watched the original show around the same time the show's debut, it's gonna paint the whole experiment in a very negative color. Then they watched the show and the fans were pissed. I never watched the show around the time it debuted and blindly just listened to everyone around me say, "Arc, bad show, ruined my childhood." But then I got a little older, a little smarter, and a bit stupider and watched the whole show. And I loved it. Whoever tells you this ruined their childhood didn't have a childhood worth protecting. Or it's not like the original clearly hates you for having fun. It's a little guilty for starting a trend of remaking classic CN shows like Powerpuff Girls or Ben 10. But unlike Powerpuff Girls that tries way too hard to appeal to everyone and fails, this show knew what it was from the beginning and evolved to be in its own thing. Heck, even the crossover movie kinda makes up for the whole this is its own thing, I guess, if you want to argue about it. Let's argue about it in the comments. Okay, I might agree that the show likes to go back to old episode ideas and even reuse ideas in the exact same show. Like, they go back to the Night Begins to Shine thing so many times, and there's even a rumor that it's gonna have its own spin-off show. Think about it. A spin-off show of a spin-off show of a show based on comic book. But I don't hate any episodes, even if they are not hilarious, which is crazy to me, even when the show's a little very fetishy. I think the first hint for me that this show was great was the movie. In fact, this was the longest gap for Cartoon Network to get a theatrical movie between this and Powerpuff Girls, and even did better box office wise. Originally, I wasn't gonna talk about this show because I don't want to talk about ongoing shows, since I think completed shows are easier to get all your thoughts on, but surprisingly I had more to say about the show. I might be crazy saying this, and I've said a lot of trashy shit, but I like this show more than the original. S for suck it.
And anyone who says otherwise has a poop mouth with poop opinions.
Well, I guess that settles it.
Dodgers in the 24th and a half century.
It's time for another Looney Toony Wacka Rooney spin-off Rooney Duck Dodgers of the 24th and 1/2 century, and out of all the experimental Looney Tunes shows, it's the third best, so that must mean I hate it. Well, no, this show's alright. It's better than Baby Tunes, I can tell you that. But it's a very weird show, as in, what is the audience for the show? Kinda weird. Like, the original Duck Dodger shorts were good, but were they good enough for a whole show? Why did it go from Buck Rogers parody with slapstick with pop culture references with slapstick? Why is Queen Tyranny so hot? But I'm just asking questions that won't be answered. So do I like this show? Sure. Some episodes are funny and stand out for obvious reasons. The Samurai Jack and Tom Jones episodes are my favorite. There are no bad episodes, only funny or forgettable episodes. Only exception is Green Lantern, which is not forgettable, but not that funny. Just because I raved about DC doesn't mean I love everything DC. Foreshadowing. What was that? Anyway, yeah, it's a fine show. B.
Sex bomb, yeah, you're a sex bomb.
Thanks, bomb, you're a thanks, bomb!
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars.
I don't like Star Wars.
Do you like this? Do you like this? Well, no more.
My first experience was with Phantom Menace, which I always dropped out around the middle part. I then watched the original trilogy, which I liked, and then the other prequel movies, second and third, which were some hot garbage.
Oh, I hate you.
Then came the sequel trilogy, that I've only seen once and have no strong opinion on them. Now there's just too much Star Wars shit out there that I don't care for in the slightest, except some episodes of Visions, cause I'm a weep.
I love anime!
Also, I don't think that you should judge one fandom, cause every fandom has some bad apples. But Star Wars does come very close. I've once or twice said my fair share of Star Wars opinions, and I've been told to my face that I'm wrong for having an opinion. With that said, Star Wars Clone Wars series is what most people have called the prequels done right, or at least in between episodes 2 or 3. And if I didn't care about the prequels movies, why would I care about this show? Well, some of my friends are Star Wars fans, and they are the best kinds of fans and friends one can have, and they recommended this show for me. The Gandhi shorts are mostly visuals, and if you are a fan of Gandhi's works, then you are gonna like that what you see. The shorts made General Grievous very cool as opposed to
General,
from the Jedi.
This, good quality, but not much of a substance. A low A for now. The Clone Wars show is a whole nother story. Probably the best Star Wars stories ever written, or you know, the ones I've seen. And the most popular Star Wars characters spawn from there. Again, the ones I've seen. But for all the Ahsokas, Azes, whatever. Individual clones with names and personalities. Some other characters get major progression. One example being Darth Maul, who in Phantom Menace was just cool window dressing, became a tortured and well-written anti-villain of the show. He even became a recurring character in Star Wars Rebels, a show I never watched, and I don't know if I want to watch, even though Maul is so ham. All the first 5 seasons are okay, but I feel like there's nothing going on. But the 6th season actually got more interesting with characters and their world changing ever so drastically. The 7th and final season that came out 6 years later after the show ended is just fine. The first arc is fun, but mostly a commercial for the Bad Batch show that I don't know if I'm gonna watch. I'm not making any promises. The second arc was kinda annoying, but the last arc is great. I'm gonna be honest, the Order 66 scene from Revenge of the Sith was whatever, but in context of the Clone Wars show, I think I like it more. When it happens in the movie, I couldn't care less about these random Jedis like Plo Koon, but since I got to know the Jedis and even the clones, it makes the stakes even more high. Heck, they don't even show us Order 66, but instead Ahsoka just gets a headache and just hears the voice clips from the 3rd movie, and for some reason, I feel more in that scene than I did the entire 3rd movie. Oh god, I gotta stop talking about Star Wars, I'll go crazy. A show, okay, I'm done. I don't want to talk about Star Wars anymore. I got lazy and looked up my Facebook review from 2016. I don't know how to end this segment. I imagine these episodes are based on that one Powerpuff Girl episode where they got a giant robot and destroyed the city. So all episodes are the Dynamo episode, and New Jersey is destroyed in every episode. These episodes are not to be taken seriously, as you can see. It's not that to say I expected something deeper like Gundam, because this is more of a Gurren Lagann. At first I thought this was inspired by it, but this came before, which maybe tells us something. The cast is okay, Coop is fun, Shiva is not very remarkable character for a stoic fish out of water. Jamie sucks. The only good thing about him is he's voiced by Steven Bloom and his future counterpart. The villains look cool, but nothing much to write home about. I really liked in the last episode. Best bad guy is Bruce Campbell. But the best thing about this show are all the anime and Sentai references. I'm not gonna go mention them all, so just look it up on TV Trope. Is that a thing still? Look, this is a very old script. I think these episodes are good for what they are, even though the story is mediocre and the characters are extremely simplistic. But the battle scenes and all the references are the best quality of these episodes. I've seen other giant robot shows that I like better though, but it has nothing against Megas XLR. Recommend if you want fun and stupid giant robot episodes. B. So remember back whenever I talked about Powerpuff Girls, I said Craig McCracken was my favorite cartoonist, and I named some of his works like Powerpuff Girls, Wonder Over Yonder, and Kid Cosmic. Well, I did leave Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which I did for a reason, but at the same time I kinda regret it. In fact, this was one of my favorite shows when I was young. I used to record every episode on VHS tapes, which I did with another CN show, but we'll get to there when we get there. It spawned so many memorable characters in design and personality, funny jokes, and even heartwarming or wrenching stories with a little tint of, hey, this world is kinda fucked. So why on God's green earth did I not name drop it when talking about Captain Crack McCracken? Well, for all the good that the show gave us, like cast, art style, writing, it also gave us some cringeworthy content, which makes me wince from time to time. Look, it takes a lot to write a character to make me hate them, and Blue Blue is probably the worst thing I've seen. Like, I have given Eddy some bad time, but at least he is not dragging down the entire show with him. At least he gets punished for his shittiness, which was a big highlight of the show. At least the movie made him grow. Blue is actually very mellow and shy in the 3-part pilot, and that alone is enough to sell us on the premise of the show. And after that, he slowly does a 180 and becomes the worst thing about Foster's Home, and you start to question, why am I even watching this show? Why is he like this? Is it because the theory that Blue represents Max, who is a good boy, inner demons, something that he's not, something that he builds inside, but he doesn't have the courage to, show it? It's even brought up in one of the best special episodes, Goodwill Hunting, that imaginary friends, personalities, represent something deep within their creator. That does sound interesting, but still, is that a good enough excuse to make Blue such a prick? As for others that fans like to point fingers at for being just as worse, Mr. Harriman, he's hilarious. Shut up. Duchess, she does not appear that much. She's, not gonna lie, that was me when I was young, and he has a special place in my heart. Bendy? Who cares? He's like in one episode. Terrence? Okay, close enough. Man, I just ranted about Blue for a hot minute. But still, I like the show despite its flaws. All the characters are just peak perfection. Mac is a good boy, and the fact that the whole show is about him hanging around the foster's home so that nobody adopts Blue because he doesn't have any human friends is just the saddest thing. Will kind of represents how I live my life, and he has by far the best TV special which revolves around his origins. Eduardo is Tom Kenny doing his Spanish accent, and we'll look past that because he's so cute. Coco is Coco. And then there's Frankie, who inspired another Sontan cartoon. Oh, and she also has a TV special, which I just view as a finale as opposed to the fairly mediocre finale that is only notable for referencing the intro in reverse. With these factors, I want to love the show more, but for some reason it favors the worst aspects more than the quality stuff. Fun fact, this show is where I learned what irony is, and it led to one of the funniest episodes of the show has to offer, or the carrot episode. That is also a classic one. It's kinda hard to decide when I should rank this. B. I'll give it a not to be confused with These Batman, as he is forever tormented to be adapted till the end of DC not giving a crap no more. And look, seeing something familiar done from another person's perspective is always gonna be controversial, and as much as we all love Batman the animated series, we should not shun the works of others as inferior. Now let's discuss The Batman, the show that's best known for having Jackie Chan adventure artist Jeff Masuda as an art director, which led to some out there designs for the classic Batman rogue gallery, from Goth Riddler, Goblin Joker, Ben 10 Alien, Bane, the Penguin who is agile like that one guy from Cowboy Bebop, what was his name again, something French, and many others. The show is also infamous for an act called the Bat Embargo, which is why Scarecrow, Two-Face, Ra's al Ghul are not in the show. Also Mad Hatter, because Dark Knight Rises was gonna have him instead of Bane, so now you know that. Oh, and the Joker's immune to the Bat Embargo because he's the Joker, baby. Alright, I was talking about the show. First two seasons are the most interesting take on Batman by giving him a new cast of supporting characters, most of them being cops. Most of the villains are your classic Bat villains, or Bat villains that have never appeared before in cartoons, like Cluemaster, the poor man's Riddler, and Ragdoll, the poor man's Scarecrow. But the new supporting cast of various ethnicities gave the show a unique identity, breakout characters being Ellen Yin, who looks like that cop girl from the Gargoyles, and Ethan Bennett, who, spoiler for a 2005 show, becomes Clayface, whose two-part episodes are great, but not as great as the Matt Haken from the animated series. That shit was terrifying. Anyway, season 3 and onward decided to drop all the new characters, and bam, here's Jim Gordon, Barbara the Batgirl, and later Robin, who looks very like his Teen Titan counterpart. That's where the show kinda loses me, but fortunately, they do continue to hold my attention. It's only in season 5 where they just decide to introduce the Justice League where I really immediately lose interest, cause with the exception of Martian Manhunter, every member and their highlight episodes are very boring. One episode has Hawkman, whom I am deeply convinced can't be written interesting in any way from what I have experienced from him. And the finale is whatever, they fight aliens. I forgot their names. The show also got a movie, Batman vs. Dracula, that has a scene where Vampire Joker breaks into a blood bank, and it's the funniest thing I've seen. As its own show, I like it fine. For a Batman show, I could recommend it to Batman fans, but if you are a fan, then I'm sure you've heard of the show. A very high B. Hey, remember Teen Titans? That show was great. It had characters, plot, art style, all amazing. One major highlight is the opening theme sung by the pop rock band Puffy AmiYumi. So wouldn't it be kinda head-scratching to make a show about the band? Hi Puffy AmiYumi is a show about the fictional versions of pop rock duo Ami Onuki and Yumi Yoshimura and their ugly gremlin manager Kaz, who going on tours and fighting vampires. Wait, what?
Garlic.
Okay, I've not seen a ton of shown based on real people, with the twist being water flavor cartoons and did some shit. Closest thing I can remember is Punky Brewster of all things, and by closest thing I mean that was a show I actually watched. And this show was certainly a thing that happened. Most memorable part of the show for me was the live action sketch at the end of the episodes, where the real Ami and Yumi just sit there being silly for 20 seconds. I don't know why, but in comparison to the actual show, which is quite forgettable, I prefer this. C4. I used to record a bunch of cartoons and an Icelandic comedy show about politics on VHS. Man, am I old or what? Those were 2 Nickelodeon shows, SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents, and 2 Cartoon Network shows, being Foster's Home and this show. And learning it was a CN show makes me happy, because I get to talk about it. Even though this show looks ugly as sin, the writing is horrendous, and the characters are deranged looking demons. The humans, not the aliens. I don't care. This show might be my guilty pleasure, which says a lot about my shit taste. I watched it so much when I was young, and it may not hold up today for some, but then again, I am not some people. Also, like in Johnny Quest, I am not bothered by the CGI. I watched the Donkey Kong show and loved it, though that may be nostalgia blindness talking. The humor is beyond deranged non sequiturs, and sometimes just loud noises. Characters with some weird quirks like Sailor, who's afraid of water and owns a candy store, Rich Boy, who talks to taxidermy dogs, and a random Napoleon Bonaparte kid for some reason. My favorite character is Swanky, and if I can recommend the show for one reason, do it for Swanky.
Nincompoops.
There have been so many weird surprises to me about what a CN show is at this point, and this might be the biggest one. A. Crypto, the currency, crypto, it's a pyramid scheme. Oh my, oh may, oh moo. Krypto the Superdog was the shit. Out of all the baby shows I talk about in this retrospective, this one slaps the hardest. Probably because I like DC Comics. It even was developed by Paul Dini of DCAU fame, which you can see in the Superman's design. Not Lex Luthor though. I don't know what's happening there. They are however not the highlight of the show. In fact, it's Krypto and his animal friends and foes that come in various designs and personalities, like Ace the Bat Hound and Lex's iguana named Iguanitus.
That's Ignatius,
who is just an evil little guy, and both are voiced by the man, the myth, the Australian-born Canadian cowboy, Scott McNeil.
So many wigs, so little time. Let's see. Maybe something classic?
There's also the Dog Star Patrol. They are like the Legion of Superheroes, only dogs and better, don't at me. And the main villain, Mechanic Cat, who was very threatening for a little boy that I was back in the day. And he can really rock that dress. I don't have anything deep to say about the show. It's just a kid's show about good dogs being good dogs and having one, if not the greatest theme song for a cartoon about dogs. I mean, I don't know, I'm not watching Paw Patrol. If you think I'm gonna have a bitch fit about a show for toddlers, then I'm not what you're looking in terms of video content. I ain't no cartoon reviewer.
And I think we should stop here. I know way too much about what people in real life do with cartoon princesses.
This show gets an A. The lifetime of Jupiter Lee tells the tale of 11-year-old girl, Juniper Lee, who has been granted the title of Chinese word I'm not gonna try to pronounce.
Zong-zi.
A protector of both human and the monster realm, so that they may both live in harmony from each other, while she has to hide it from her friends and family, with the exception of her little brother, grandma, and a talking dog. I used to catch glimpses of the show from time to time, and personally I didn't do much for me personally. In fact, when I watched the whole show through, there was actually a moment I really liked, and due to the abrupt ending the show got, it made it very frustrating that they didn't do much with it. While the drama of Juniper not being able to spend time with her friends is more touched on, not as frequently, the fact that she can't leave her hometown because of her responsibilities is something that comes up once, and it's very frustrating that they didn't do anything with it, cause that was interesting. If only the show wasn't busy with pop culture references and stupid hijinks that the little brother lands in and wasn't bogging the whole screen time, maybe something would come out of it. Like, I do like some of the characters and the whole responsibility angle. I can't say I'm fully in love with the show. B. There, I went through this whole segment without talking about that thing Jeff Good wrote. What was it called? Oh yeah, Puna the Fog Dog and Other Place for Children. Here we have a rare case of I can't believe it's not SpongeBob genre. I kid. Although this show has another connection to Nickelodeon, as the creator Joe Murray made Rocko's Modern Life, which was a show ahead of its time and had some impact on how the show ended. I love this show. I used to record SpongeBob episodes back in the day, and to think a show could capture the same spirit as SpongeBob was unthinkable. Enter Lazlo, a monkey that goes to summer camp and has funny, wacky, camp-related adventures like saving Christmas or go trick-or-treating with his friend Raj, who's voiced by a white guy and talks like this.
No, Lazlo, I think this time he really needs us to help him by helping him.
Raj, why do you talk like that? And Clam, a constant reminder of how simple I was as a child.
Scary traffic cone.
Among them is a rich cast of weirdos and freaks at Camp Kidney who all fill SpongeBob-esque roles. I don't like the show for any extraordinary reason whatsoever. I just like the wacky, funny, and sometimes chill vibes this show gives off all the time. One thing I can say that this show has over SpongeBob is that it knew when to end. And oh boy, what a way to end. So remember that thing I said that Rocko's Modern Life had an impact on the show? Well, spoilers! In the last episode, it turns out the campus network was the clothes of Gumball comes of the scheme to paint the clothes on them, which results in him becoming famous only for the rain to wash away the paint. And then the police arrive with Heifer from Rocko's Modern Life, only older without hair, and reveals the lump and knocked him out for the entire summer so he could be a scoutmaster because he's a crazy person. A tier. Enough said.
Firehouse Tales.
It's a show about fire trucks. They do fire trucks related things, and that's about it. In the Icelandic dub, the orange one shares the same name as my father. For a CGI show with 2D animated backgrounds and humans, it's not weird and awkward like Transformers, Energon, and Cybertron. Hey, remember when I used to talk about Transformers? I missed that. I should do more of those. This retrospective may be a personal journey of cartoons that have shaped my interest and personality, but sometimes there are weird bumps on the roads that I have literally nothing to say. I'm literally just talking about making Transformers videos again, cause those were fun. I'm not gonna stop making them. I just wanted to do this project, and I'm glad that you are enjoying this journey with me. Yeah, the show, see. Okay, let's hope the next show I have something more to say. Okay, so good news, I have more things to say about this one. The bad news is, it's my gym partner's a monkey.
It's jungle out there.
My gym partner's a monkey, and I hate this show. I have said that I am not a cartoon reviewer, but I only say that because making fun of people who take this seriously is funny. If I'm gonna rant about this show, I at least want to form my opinion in a subjective way, rather than those who do it in a very cartoon reviewery way, but I'm tempted to. The premise is...
I used to go to a human school where everyone was the same. Now I go to an animal school because lion's my last name.
Interesting, but what we get out of it is not a lot in substance. The look is what you expect from Cartoon Network at this point, but oh god, I do not like these characters. I keep saying that word. Adam is very bland, and Jake, though not as bad as Blue, is up there, and the rest are weird school friend stereotypes that are all annoying in various ways. Emotionless smart gorilla, the dude bra snake, angry Latina toucan, and the giraffe who is
Thank goodness! There's no way Adam could be in love with a human.
weirdly horny for Adam. Some do stand out for not being annoying. Most of them are the teachers and the shark bully. I love that one. The plots of the episodes are very bad and unfunny. 99% of the episodes are just Adam and Jake, whom I question why they are friends. Maybe one episode was okay with Gilbert Gottfried, rest in peace, as a platypus.
Is it me or just my pretty face?
But that leaves us with 99 episodes and a TV movie that only takes place in a bus.
Monkey, monkey, monkey!
And you have a show that I don't want to watch again. D for Die. That's right, I'm talking about all of Ben 10. All 5 shows, which is half of 10. Mathematical! Wait, we're not there yet. Here is where it all started, when an alien devised what it did and stalked itself upon his wrist the secret that it hid. Now he's got superpowers, he's no ordinary kid, he's Ben 10. This is one of those shows with craziest lores that, surprise surprise, I know a little too much about. Casuals know what a Ben Tennyson and an alien is, but the true lore master knows that Kevin stabbed them. So when an alien devises and takes out the plumber, uses Kevin to use his access to Ben 10. So much started here with just being your average one-off episodic Saturday morning action fast that would later become more refined in its defining identity. I'm shocked that on a rewatch that I would like this show much more. First reaction, Ben was very annoying, but the more the show went on, he started to grow in a very subtle ways that I found very charming. In fact, all the characters are very charming. Gwen, Grandpa Max, Vilgax, Dr. Animo, and Kevin, who would become a much better character in the future of the franchise. But what every Ben 10 loves about the show was the fantasized Gwen, were the aliens from Forearms, Diamond Head, Heat Blast, and Spitter. Nobody's favorite alien. They are so unique, and the ideas are never ending. My favorite was Ghost Freak, who scared the living shit out of me. It also had a movie, The Secret of the Omnitrix, that follows the trend of other CN shows movies by being epic, and a live action movie that blew chunks. Out of all the Ben shows, this might be the best one, which does not bode well, because I'm gonna talk about the rest of the sequel shows now.
Oops, I forgot to record the part where I say S tier. Now let's move on to a disappointing sequel.
The show then made Benneth the Tenth serious and dark. By dark, I mean it's so dark that I can't see shit. And it kinda worked for a time. First 2 seasons tell one ongoing story with few one-offs that took our characters into bold new directions. Ben being more mature, Kevin getting over his past and becoming an ally, Grandpa Max almost getting killed off, and Gwen not being fantasized anymore. I mean learning magic, which had been a plot point building up. It was so amazing to see this one Saturday morning cartoon grow up. Then season 3 happened and I hated it. Ben became this asshole that won't shut up. Vilgax returns with no fanfare and all the episodes are mediocre mess. This show also decided to do a drastic change and give us 10 new aliens to replace the old ones until they all came back. We got Swampfire, Big Chill, Goop, Echo, and Alien X. An alien so strong they nerfed him in a very interesting way that I kinda love. My favorite was Humongousaur and Brainstorm, because it's fun to say those names. We also got another live action movie that I don't want to watch. Yeah, I'm not gonna watch it. You can't make me. Man, the show started off so great and just turned for the worst. I give this show a C, and I hope this doesn't get any worse.
Look, Gwen, you have to treat a car like you treat a woman.
Go on.
No.
Ben 10 Ultimate Alien is the worst thing since my son.
There's so much bad in this show. For example, they continue to write Ben as this obnoxious asshole that I do not like. The one-off episodes are scuffed messes, like what if the two bullies had a YouTube channel. The show gets two long stories, with the former getting kinda retconned and the latter one focusing on the boring Ben 10 villains, the Forever Knights, by giving them a forced backstory to trick me into believing they are cool. The new aliens they add in are lame, except Clockwork, he is cute. The ultimate gimmick, where 8 out of 46 aliens Ben had at this point, and some of these ultiforms are Cannonballed but grey with tiny stubs, Big Chill but he's red, Humongosaur but he's green, and some other garbage. But honestly, the worst part of Ultimate Alien for me personally is that it doesn't really have an identity to stand on its own. You can show this and Alien Force side by side and you could not tell the difference. Heck, both shows even do this annoying thing where Ben says the name of the aliens he changes into in every episode.
Fire!
Even his ultimate forms. Like, why? It also had a crossover with Generator X, which was whatever. This show sucks. D for I Wanna Die. Here we arrive on the next best Ben 10 show. Many reasons, such as getting Derek J. Wyatt as an art director, being more lighthearted compared to the last two shows, completely retconned the plot point from Ultimate Alien to make up for its shit-ass story arc, and finally, Ben is not much of an asshole as he was before. This show is in fact a big fan service for Ben 10 fans alike. It's such a fan service show that we even have stories about 10-year-old Ben, which feels like a welcome pace at this point, but we also have tons of aspects from previous shows that are used better here. Examples like that one-off show where the aliens accidentally fuse together, now being a gimmick for the future version of Ben. Even the stupid ultimate gimmick gets some justice, with the villain Abedo, an evil version of Ben who gets the short end of the stick. It's almost funny. And also the ultimate forms, they even look better than they did before. And yes, this show has multiverses, because even back then we couldn't stop milking that idea. The multiverse two-parter is notable because it introduced me to my favorite version of Ben. Ben 23, baby! Actually, it's where he never got the watch and uses it better than the original one. It's kinda like how he should have been in Alien Force and Ultimate Alien. What I feel like is the weakest part of Omniverse though is its pace. It's either too slow or too fast, especially how story arcs are paced. They are numerous and happen very rapidly with tons of one-offs spliced in between, and it's kind of a mess. Watching it weekly, maybe it would have been better, like I did with TMNT 2012, but marathoning it can kill the mood. Let's see what else is there. Ah yes, new aliens. This show introduces the second most number of aliens since the original, and they range from cute blocks, a sign that the franchise was running out of steam, a yellow guy that Ben calls the worst because he's racist towards Atrocians, and the actual worst. My favorite is Topic, cause he's so ugly that everyone died. The end. I give the show a B. It's the 5th Ben 10 show, the 3rd Cartoon Network reboot, and from Teen Titans Go, which was surprisingly good, and Powerpuff Girl 2016, that was bad. How does this show stand out? Honestly, people learned their lesson and decided not to give this show the negative attention that 2016 Powerpuff Girls choked on by simply ignoring it. It's crazy that this show lasted longer and even got long TV specials, one being a Gen Rex crossover that I liked more than the first one. I know this is a Ben 10 reboot, but it wants to be like the original one, and with how the show looks and is written, did it pull it off? Well, that's the funny part. It's an okay show. It's what the PPG 2016 wanted to be, but successful at least. The humor is sometimes goofy one-liner jokes with occasional slapstick, but other parts it takes itself seriously, kinda like the original show, and it doesn't feel off-putting and or tone-deaf, but earned. Even Wildcats is written the same as before. It even has original villains. Well, One of them is just Vin Diesel from the Fast and the Furious movies that are not as good as the classic Ben 10 Rogue Gallery, but they far succeed the Powerpuff Girl 2016 ones. I feel like something that the classic Powerpuff Girls would come up with, and that's a high praise. Granted, some episodes are just the same episodes from the old show, but not as good, and some are just learning the lesson over and over again, and it kinda gets annoying. But as weird it is to say, this might be the third best Ben 10 show of them all. Alien Force and Ultimate Alien may have its fans, but I'm not one of them. I give this show a B.
It's over! It's finally over!
Hey,
Made by the late Everett Pack, who made Duckman. And oh boy, if you thought Monkey Jim part was bad, well it still is, but this is close. This show feels like that one scene in Biodome where they're watching TV and a clown dies. What I'm saying is this show killed comedy, and yes, I did steal that joke from Nostalgia Critic. It's also one of those adult cartoonists making cartoon for the younger demographic situation, and unlike another case, it went bad. Rodney the Squirrel should be character I would like on paper, being voiced by Richard Horvitz, who is hilarious when given the chance despite playing Billy, who got annoying. Rodney is supposed to be a charming asshole, but they forgot to give him charm, so he's just an asshole. Only characters I like are Billy Westbully, I forgot his name, and Saltine Mike, his Hispanic parrot, but like almost everything in the show, there's so much potential here, but it's all squandered. The dad is played by Kurtwood Smith. How did you fuck that up? Also, I was curious about this, but did the whole show take place during the summer? They never go to school, only summer camps. The show came out before Phineas and Ferb, a show that did the summer vacation thing too, and if you think I need to tell you which one did it better, but in the end, the worst part is that this show is not that funny. Like, can you call any of these jokes, if you can, a funny joke? But comedy is subjective or whatever. So this dreadful show gets a D. Here she is now, Ellen. Created by Lenny Squartz, who also created Camp Mikey, a show I have not seen and have heard not so great things about it. Comes a preschool show about a girl and her imagination. Like if you have seen Dora the Explorer, then this show is just that. Ellen is adorable, the episodes are short, quick, and can even be funny from time to time.
Miss Flomans was really thankful that I was gonna help her.
Oh!
Yeah, that's it. B. Look, these are not that easy to write, okay? If you have thesis about Ellen's Acres, then feel free to tell me about it in the comments. Let's move on to something else.
Class of 3000C!
We now have A Musical, a show about a former musician becoming a music teacher and his students learning about music and doing other crazy music or non-music related shenanigans. Yeah, they just got the rights to Andre 3000 music and wrote around it, and for the most part it was fun, but the show got cancelled due to copyright stuff, which is a shame because despite the very loose premise, the music is excellent. Every episode has a song that's animated in a beautiful and unique style, in the spirit of Cartoon Network groovies. Remember those? I used them as background music in part 1. My favorites being Throwdown and All We Want Is Your Soul. Oh, and the characters are pretty fun. Every kid, with the exception of the twins and Little B, are a fun little bunch. Madison is the best girl, Philly is best boy, and Principal Luna is fantastic. I don't particularly like this show, but do check out the animated songs. They are some S-tier stuff. But I give this show a B. The classic movie franchise that made us go, no, we don't want another sequel, spawned a TV show. Fun fact, the last Land Before Time movie came out in 2016, and the movie before that in 2007, which was the same year this show came out. That lasted until 2008, which meant this was the last Land Before Time thing during the 2000s. Okay, so I've watched almost all the Land Before Time sequels back in the day, except like 2 or 3, I don't know, I'm not gonna watch them all again, leave me alone. The ones I remember the most were the original, Journey Through the Mist, The Mysterious Island, The Stone of Cold Fire, and The Invasion of Tinosauruses. They made a new character for the show called Rupee, who is an oviraptor. I didn't watch the show. See for yourself.
If you don't like it, feel free to shove it.
Oh my god, this show is whack! We all can come together and agree that Roger Rabbit was a phenomenal movie, and everything that copied the idea ranged from "this is fine" to "please stop." How do you think pitching the idea for the show went? Okay, so we got alien sister, astronaut mother, a dad who should not be working in a school,
I wish I had a big, strong man.
and cartoon live inside a boy's head after getting hit by a train at a not Disneyland. Great, what's the story? He goes to school and does boring school things. I remember like 2 episodes and a pilot movie where the idiot best friend who is Asian as opposed to in the show where he's black. Also the train scene that leads to a surgery done by the mascot at the not Disneyland, and one of them is an old guy who keeps the brain of the animation legend not Walt Disney in his lunchbox, and you can see where this is all going. I'm gonna take a wild guess and say this was Cartoon Network's attempt to replicate a preteen comedy sitcom out of the likes of Disney and Nickelodeon, which has their fans. I'm not one of them. I did watch scary amount of iCarly and Victorious though, and that was enough for my lifetime. I guess Cartoon Network did put a spin on the idea with cartoons, but like isekai anime, a gimmick is not gonna get me to watch it ever. The best character is the villain, who is the son of not Walt Disney, who lives in Jimmy's basement and wants to steal the cartoons by lobotomizing him. I wish I was lobotomized. D for Jesus Christ, make it stop! We reach another SpongeBob-inspired show made by C.H. Greenblatt, who worked on SpongeBob for a time and even made a show for Nickelodeon, Harvey Beaks, which Nick cancelled without telling him. Smooth moves, Nick. That's almost as good as your Halloween commercial. Anyway, Chowder is a blast. It's just as good as Lazlo, if not greater, with its inventive premise about made-up food, impressive art direction, and different animation style. Has funny little gags. Characters just as charming and unforgettable, like Chowder, Mung, Gazpacho, played by Dana Snyder, Master Shakefang, Schnitzel, who we all can relate to, and a puppet of C.H. Greenblatt, who lives in the clouds and oversees everything like the god he is. Also, all the funny jokes this show throws at us are just, chef kiss. Get it? Because it's a show about food. My favorite joke is one where they spend so much money that they run out of animation and the voice actors have to make money via car wash, as it's both a genius fourth wall breaking and just a charming wholesome imagery altogether. If you haven't watched the show, then I'm telling you, you are missing out, and compared to the last few shows that came before, this is a gold nugget. I give this a For those who don't know, I went to art school and discovered the magic of video editing. I used this talent to make a video about my favorite movie of all time, Transformers. No, not that one. Or that one, what the fuck? No, the 80s one with the action, the songs, the deaths, and all the quotes. That video is up for everyone to watch and be judged accordingly. And after that, I made more videos on robots in disguise, the more the meets the eyes. Then I decided to make this ranking retrospective that would take a while to make, where I would talk about everything but Transformer stuff. With that out of the way, here's some Transformer stuff. This show is the GOAT. Am I biased for claiming something so bold? No, I am based for telling the truth. Shinformers is both a made by fans, for fans type of show, but also a great starting point for newcomers. It has a dynamic cast of Autobots and Decepticons with new faces, familiar faces, who have been reinvented for future incarnation, and a bold take on an icon of the franchise, Optimus Prime, who has been portrayed well most of the times, and others, but this is something different that surprisingly hasn't been done a lot afterwards. I give praise to David Kaye, a guy known for playing various versions of Megatron, and shares my birthday for portraying this version of Prime. As I said with Decepticons, they're both familiar and new faces, but not many bold takes. We already did that with IDW, Megatron, and Armada Starscream. But still, they are just the perfect the way they are. The story here is amazing. Granted, some elements are references from older Transformers media with some fun twists, and the big MacGuffin is the Allspark from the Michael Bay films. And that shit will not get tired very fast, but beside that, it's great. But the boldest thing this show did was making a story where the human character is by far the most interesting aspect, the Sari Sumdeck, which I'm not gonna spoil, but she is the best human ally of all Transformers media. Okay, Fowler from Prime comes close, but still, justice for Sari. Also, that theme song, both English and especially the Japanese one.
The show kinda shares a similar background with The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, where the majority of fans hated it when it came out for looking silly compared to what came before. We all call those people who hate fun, but unlike Wind Waker, the design for TFA was always an intended style since they got one of my favorite art directors, the great late Derek J. Wyatt, who might have been the biggest Transformer fan of all time. There are so many cameos in the show, from well-known like Ironhide and very obscure ones like Grandis, who appears for like 10 seconds and I love it. Even when the show lasted 3 seasons, this guy continued to draw more Transformers characters that never appeared in the show, with some who were planned for the cancelled season 4, and after I read the synopsis for that season, it made me even sadder than the 6th season of Teen Titans. If you take anything from me in this whole retrospective, then watch this show and my Transformers videos. I'm really proud of those. They may not be as long as this video, but this franchise means a lot to me, especially this show, which I'm giving, obviously, an S. Thank you, Derek J. Wyatt. Till all one.
The Mr. Men Show!
Damn, yet another surprise. I used to read the Mr. Men books and watch the Mr. Men and Little Miss show a lot when I was a kid. I also caught a glimpse of this show, that unlike the books and the older show that focused on individual Mr. and Mrs., this show followed more of a variety show with every episode about a topic, like sports, food, ships. That one had a Titanic moment. Yikes. Also, it did not include those human characters that I never understood why these type of shows did that. The show is mostly funny gags with a gimmick, and if you find them funny, then I guess it's worth a watch for you. I think it's okay. B for Mr. Bump, who's the best Mr. Oh my god, he fell down the stairs! Call 911! I have finally found the most niche premise in this retrospective. A spoof of kung fu movies, but the main characters are chickens? Or I think they are chickens, unless they are racist caricatures. I have forgotten everything that happens in the show, with the exception of like 2 or 3 episodes. One was about Jackie Chan chicken fighting a cobra dude, and the other had a nun who might be the strongest character in the series, and nothing can convince me otherwise. I'm not gonna power scale the show, and that's all I have to say. I don't care enough about the show to go into more details. C for cock sucking chicks. Nailed it. Flapjack! Hey, Flapjack! Here is the ugliest show I've seen thus far, but that is like the appeal of it. This show always fascinated me for the weirdest of reasons. It's a very by-the-book slapstick comedy show with weird characters and the crazy stories in this fascinating world of sailors looking for candy. It gives me that cursed SpongeBob energy that appealed to me from time to time. I think I didn't vibe with the show as much as I wanted to, which is a shame, because this show had a huge impact on CN as some of the writers went on to make their own shows like Over the Garden Wall, Regular Show, and Adventure Time. Well, one writer went to work for Disney and made a little show, you may have heard it, was called So yeah, I appreciate the show for its ugly yet charming aesthetic, Flapjack for being a little goober, and the finale that just decided to end like this. I think the show is fine for what it is and what it did, and I decided not to have a but in this sentence. I give it a B. Man, we don't have enough Cartoon Network cryptic fans out there because we made a show just for that niche demographic. Truly a tragic situation. In fact, this show is mostly remembered for 2 things. 1, Drew Saturday, the mom. 2, the Ben 10 Omniverse crossover where Ben is constantly drooling over the mom. I may not know a lot about cryptics with the exception of what the show has to offer, but the show gives off a very real Adventures of Johnny Quest vibe, which I appreciated since I praised that show with an A. And just like Johnny Quest, my favorite character is Vivi Arcos, the main antagonist of the show, with how he talks has an impact on season 2 story-driven arc, and that he hosts a reality show called Weird World, which, not gonna lie, if that was the actual show, I would probably S-rank it. Not much else to say other than if you like the show, it's either for the cryptic angle or the MILF angle. B for Batman. here it is, my favorite Batman show of all time. Although, even with Batman in the name, this show is more about the massive world of Detective Comics, with Batman being the main protagonists of sorts. In fact, there are very few episodes about Batman's world, one of them being Chill of the Night, which is probably one of the best Batman things out there, and another about Batwoman, who is not gay, switching bodies with Batman, which was hilarious. If you have never read a comic before but find the DC heroes interesting, then this show is just for you. The format even emulates the comics of old, with a cold opening that tells a short adventure of Batman and hero fighting a villain. One insane one is Batman fighting the crazy Professor Milo, who uses mind control device on a nest of mice to steal stuff. So who does Batsy get to help him fight this low-level crook? Why not the fucking Spectre, the Wrath of God, of course, who turns him into cheese so the mice can eat him. There's also one with Abe Lincoln fighting robot John Wilkes Booth. It features many crazy heroes like Plastic Man, Blue Beetle, the Press, Uncle Sam, a German World War I pilot, and the haunted tank driven by the ghost of James Ewell Brown Stewart. Many crazy villains like the Gas Gang, Gorilla Boss, hey look, another DC gorilla, 4th time's the charm, Neil Patrick Harris, and Animal Vegetable Mineral Man. The most popular breakout character from this show is Batmite, played by Pee Wee Herman, who was reinvented from being a Mr. Mixius Pitlick for Batman to being a Batman fanboy who breaks the fourth wall, which leads to many references for all the hardcore Bat fans out there, and even a fun little anthology episode. In the last episode, he even got the show cancelled, The Fiend. If you are confused by the insane goofball mood since you are more familiar with the darker storytelling other DC stories, or just Batman stories in general known for, then you, sir, don't know that this show is based around the Silver Age of comics, where No Idea was dumb enough to be published gave us some meme-worthy moments. Remember when Batman turned into a baby or wore a rainbow-colored batsuit? Screw your stupid battle armor variant action figures. Give me LGBT Batman. This show also made the weirdest of crossovers, one being with Space Ghosts, not of the Coast of Coast variety, and a feature-length Scooby-Doo crossover, cause why not? That's the third show to get a Scooby-Doo crossover. In fact, this one has 2 of them. Funny, exciting, imaginative, and gets an S.
I hate those funnies.
We finally reached the end. Jesus fucking Christ. And it's another comic book show. Again! But it's a Marvel, so it's different, I guess. If you ask me which I prefer, Marvel or DC, well, it's IDW because Sonic. But between the two, DC always has better animated shows, and Marvel has very outstanding shows like Spectacular Spider-Man, which I've not seen, but have heard nothing but good things about. I am a fake Spidey fan. And X-Men the animated series, which I watched a lot. There's also shows that didn't put a lot of effort in because MCU is the only thing Disney cares about, and some hot garbage like the Avengers show. So my opinion on Marvel in animated TV media is mixed. Spider-Verse, best thing ever. The Superhero Squad Show, or TISS for short, is a goofy show about Marvel heroes and villains being highly exaggerated caricatures with a MacGuffin story arcs for both 2 seasons. First being about the made-up MacGuffin for the show, the Infinity Sword, and second season about the well-known Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity Stones or gems, I forget. TISS is sometimes compared to Batman Brave and the Bold, both being a lighter toned show that pays great tribute to their respective comic franchises. I disagree with half of it, cause in reality TISS is a parody of the Marvel universe than anything else. You see, I know this because I watched both shows. The closest thing we have to a Marvel's answer to Brave and the Bold show is Ultimate Spider-Man, since both Bats and Spidey can be argued in being the mascots of their both respective comic book company. Oddly enough, this doesn't have Spider-Man unless you count the video game. In terms of what the show has to offer, it has both the silly and the obscure of Marvel, like MODOK, who is silly, Reptile, who is obscure, Egghead, who is both, and some tributes like Planet Hulk, Marvel's 1600, and obviously Infinity Wars before MCU did it. It might sound like I don't like this show, but that's far from the truth. I like it a lot. A show with that great of a theme song is definitely doing something right. And if asked which Marvel show I'd prefer, this might be one of the top 5 in a sea full of Marvel messes. I like a bunch of the characters with how they are portrayed. Charlie Adler as Doctor Doom and Jim Cummings as Thanos is just a perfect casting. The squad is a likable bunch, and like Brave and the Bold, it's always fun to see guest characters from the comic book pop up. Like Flatman shows up. I love Flatman. He can stretch too. Even the characters made up for the show are fun. Yo, shout out to the best character, Mayor of Superhero City, played by the great late Stan the Man Lee. The story arc in season 1 is alright, but season 2 story does something bold with its second half. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's some good stuff. There are so few good Marvel cartoons out there, and this is one of them. A for Captain America.
Fat Dog Mendoza. This is the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. D. Cramp Twins. My friend Vivi Flam told me to talk about this show. They are a big inspiration for making videos. Check out their YouTube channel. Vivi gets an S. Fuck this show. This show gets a D. Spaced out. So boring. D. Now here's a show I've seen too much about. Do you like Foster's Home? Because I can tell this show does. Although Robot Boy is more likable than Blue, I guess. The best part is Dr. Kamikaze and Constantine, and the worst part is Gus. The only thing people remember the show for is the mom, and I don't need to explain anymore. C. Fantastic Four, World's Greatest Heroes. Out of 4 Fantastic Four shows, this is by far the best one. It is also loosely based on the only good live-action movie, which there are 4 of. A. A quiz show with live-action kids, made-up cartoon characters, and troll drama characters. Did you know that most reality shows are scripted? C. My Spy Family. This isn't a cartoon, but I watched it. It's kinda bad, but it's so bad it's good kinda way. Hi B. The Garfield Show. I watched an hour-long video about the cultural impact that it had on the internet. And personally, I don't think I have anything interesting to say about the 2009 show. C. Casper's Scare School. Monster High setting with Casper. I don't like Casper. C. Gerald McBoing Boing. Out of all of Dr. Seuss space shows, it's the remake of the 50s original show. I mean, either this is the least known or Daisy Head Macy. It's a boy who makes funny noises. If you like Police Academy movies, then go watch them instead. C. Stormhawk. This show has a zombie mommy villain and a green guy played by Scott McNeil, and the CGI looks very good, I guess. A. Best Dad. That's not my best dad. C. Johnny Test. Do you like Dexter's Lab? Then watch that instead. B. For Bling Bling Boy. Total drama. I've only watched the first one, and the fact that the recent one is a baby version of the cast, I am not in a hurry to watch it all. C. George of the Jungle. Season 1 is okay. Season 2 is a fattest fuel nightmare. B. Hot Wheel Battle Force.
These are some hot wheels.
Yeah, I'm not watching this. Fuck this show. D. The Big O2, a sequel to a show I never was. C for See It Later. Immortal Grand Prix from Cartoon Network and the studio that made the One Piece OVA that no one remembers. It's a racing show with giant robots. I've only watched one racing anime and a movie based on a racing anime, and it's gonna take more than okay. Never mind. B.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Santo versus the Cologne. Santo, Santo, Santo. Heroes 108, very stylized and not too bad. Love that skeleton rabbit. A. Lazy Town. It's a show based on an Icelandic property and is by far the most popular incarnation of Lazy Town, but not the best one. These puppets don't give me nightmares because they are very bland. What the fuck? But at least Glendy Gladber is still the best. B. The Hoppos Family, a preschool show about hippos doing stuff and speak Simlish. Ask your kids if it's funny and or good. C for See a Psychiatrist. It's funny because both the words don't start with a C. Grizzly and the Lemmings, same thing as the last one, but with a bear and lemmings. See again. The Heroic Quest of Valiant Prince Ivandoe. It has the same look and feel as Gumball since it was created by an animator from that show and even has similar humor. S-Rank. Power Players, from the creators of Ben 10 and Jenner X, Man of Action, comes with the $1 million question. What if Toy Story, but Andy turned into a toy? Hello, B. Grosh Band. Hey, wait a minute. This isn't Scott Pilgrim.
A. Super Nukes, made by Scott How Do You Do Fellows Kids. Here comes a show about kids fighting aliens and they suck at it, hence the name Super Noobs. It's alright. B. Mega Man, fully charged. I love the Blue Bomber. His games are pretty tight and the Archie comics were good. This show is fine. Some of the redesigns are good and some are Cutman's ugly bowl cut. The silly tone was kind of blah and the Boom Studio comic sequel was dark and edgy. B. Bakugan Battle Planet. I barely watched the first Bakugan show. Why the fuck would I watch this? C. Total Dramarama. It's the baby one. It has a fart sniffing scene. D. Role number 21, also known as Krish, an Indian show about the incarnation of the Hindu deity Lord Krishna. It's not in English, I don't speak Hindi, so I can't comment on it, and I don't know anything about Hinduism. B. Exchange Student Zero.
Oh, happy peach flower. Now that is one real woman.
Yeah, anime was a mistake. D. Lamput. Oh my god, he is so cute. A.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oswaldo. It's a penguin in a sweater. C. Ninjin. Brazilian anthro ninja shows with a bad English dub.
Little kids these days don't even know how to start a fight. Whee! Are we done? Oh, brother.
C. We Boom. This voice is annoying.
Wee! You already said that the last 23 times. Remember, we are here to search for the Boomy.
C. Alright, let's start with a real list with Adventure Time! Wait, Pink Panther? I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the old Peter Sellers movies, with the exception of one. And the Stephen Martin one was funny because my brain is mush.
Am Burger. Hamburger. Amber. Hamburger. Dimburger. Dimburger. The hamburger.
You know what aspect of Pink Panther I don't care for in the slightest? The titular Pink Panther, as in the titular cat, not the titular diamond. The stupid cartoon cat is not the thing that interests me about the franchise. It's the bumbling detective, Inspector Jacques Clouseau, which, by the way, is not in the show. It's just a modern take on those old Pink Panther cartoons where the titular colored panther fucks with some white guy. Also, I hate this redesign. It's just as bad as the redesign of our Icelandic chocolate milk cat. I used to watch the old PP cartoons when I was young. The only one I remember was the painting one, you know, the one where he paints. This show also has other characters that I've never seen. If there are any big Pink Panther heads in the comments, please tell me if they are important legacy characters made by D. Pate Freleng Enterprises. God damn it, I wanted to start off this retrospective with a show that revived Cartoon Network, but I just had to start it off with this Pink Panther show. I don't care about this show. See? Now, okay, it's time for Adventure Time. So this is... Oh, I bit my tongue. So this is the segment where I decided to write last. Why is that, you ask? Well, because Adventure Time is not just my favorite show of all time, but my favorite thing of all time. Like Transformers and One Piece, it's more than just one thing to me. I first decided to watch the show from the weirdest of places, which was Doc Walker's Adventure Time vlogs that just hooked me. Also Avatar The Last Airbender, since I saw the movie first, and oh boy, was that bad. This was the first show to spawn from Flapjack, and made by Pendleton Ward, who originally pitched this show to Nickelodeon, and they said no, in favor of Fanboy and Chum Chum. Do with that information what you will, and arguably Adventure Time is the best show in my opinion, cause regular show may have its down to earth, but also its batshit insane vibe. Oh shit. Over the Garden Wall has its gothic atmosphere, and Gravity Falls, a show I discovered through Chatbase cause I'm kinda cursed, is everyone's favorite fan speculation extravaganza until the show ended, but Adventure Time is all of that, and even more. Now let's talk about all the aspects of the show I love. Like...
adventure time.
The world our character live in is probably my favorite setting in any of these shows, even if it's a very colorful version of a post-apocalyptic Earth. The Land of Ooo is much of a character as any other in the show, and other shows for that matter. The Candy Kingdom is a wholesome, funny place, but has many dark secrets that I found very funny at first, and now I think it's very interesting for the main characters, but we'll talk about that later. And even though there are other kingdoms in the show, they don't get as much of a focus compared to Candy Kingdom. Fire Kingdom and Lemon Kingdom get some, and Ice Kingdom is kingdom in name only, so it's unique in that it gets more focus. Wizard City was always a weird aspect of Adventure Time, and most of the time it's the butt of a joke, but it comes around and does something insane. But the one place that is the most important one is the treehouse that gets the most focus, obviously, because that's where the heroes live, and has quite the scene in the finale. But Ooo is not the only place we get to see. There's the Nightosphere, Land of the Dead, Prismo's Room, Farm World, Mars, fucking slumpy space. My favorite one of worlds is the Pillow World, cause that was a mindfuck. From space, Earth, and the world beyond life. These worlds give me such a comic book vibe, and I can't think of any other show that can top that. Sure, K&D has its batshit world, and other shows do have more simplistic settings that sometimes can be argued they do it just as good, but some of them doesn't have as much depth and personality as Adventure Time. But enough about places. Let's talk about
It's adventure time.
my favorite thing about any movie, TV show, book, comic, stage play, pachinko machine will always be characters, because your story can have the most bold idea out there, have the strongest hook, or just the genre that's very popular with a twist. If the characters make me want to scream into the abyss, then fuck that noise, into the garbage it goes. Adventure Time may be the counterpoint, cause the premise hooked me first, but I stayed for Finn, Jake, Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, Vampire Queen, and Ice King, who can be best described as the greatest hook this show has. These characters are more than just the surface level. Shows before Adventure Time, they had cast members that were fully developed, and shows after Adventure Time followed its example, but nothing goes as hard as Adventure Time. Finn, who is the lawful good hero we love, but then starts slowly to become more aware of what is right and wrong. His feelings of love, justice, hate, despair gets challenged from time to time. Even with a theme song that calls him Finn the Human, we always ask the question, where are the other humans? Are they dead? Is he the last one? Wait, is that character human? Or that one? This growth and change does not just describe Finn. Marceline, the fan favorite, who has gone through the ringer, her own miniseries where she hunts vampires named after tarot cards, a relationship with Princess Bubblegum that goes from on the nose to so obvious that it's right there, and even if some, like Jake, doesn't change, he is still one of the deepest characters the show has to offer in terms of his relationship with his parents, his parasite dad, his brothers, his girlfriend Lady Rainicorn, who I just realized gets to do so little in this show, it's kinda weird. His children, who all get their own episodes, 2 of them get more than others and are voiced by the Bob's Burger kids. And his own interests and views on life makes Jake one of the best characters in the show. Princess Bubblegum, the most controversial topic of the show, is one of my favorite characters of all time. Probably for the reason you might think, and not that. Yeah, see, I'm also deep with Elaine. Her looks and how she talks often contrast with how she feels and does things. Her morality is one of the most fascinating of them all, but most of the time it's the most criticized aspect of her. She mostly does good things for the sake of her people and the greater good, but other times her ends does not justify the means and slowly does take a step back and think of another way. My favorite scene is her unplugging all of the cameras around Ooo, because that scene is just brilliant. Note, I looked up Adventure Time alignment chart for fun, and most of them put PB in lawful good, and yeah, I disagree. But then there's BMO. BMO's not deep, BMO's not complex, BMO is BMO. And BMO's whole thing is just to be the most wholesome thing in the show, and BMO always makes me smile. And I could go on forever about every character, like LSP and her being an annoying character actually saves the world. The Lich, A nightmare villain topping the likes of him and Aku for being an unstoppable force of power until he becomes a baby. Ice King, the most tragic character in the show in many ways. Peppermint Butler, the most darkest character in the show, that's mostly for the lulz. Death, and out of 3 depictions of death throughout CN history, he's my second favorite. Lemon Grab. Yeah, and 100 of tertiary characters that make an impact on the show in so many ways. But I'm gonna slide into...
Who knows how it will end, it's adventure time.
Like most shows, the season 1 is pretty weak and not sure where it wanted to go, but season 2 to 10 are pure gold. We got one-off stories like James Baxter, the weird horse thing, which whole joke is that he's animated by James Baxter. The Grey Bulls that got weirder and weirder, that in Grey Bulls 1000 plus that gave us a glimpse of the future. And Fiona Cake's whole concept is just genius. By the way, it's getting a spin-off show and it's not out yet, but I'm writing this. I gotta say though, reading synopsis for Fiona Cake gets me kinda excited. Not to mention the guest animated episodes like Fujin that was animated by Masaki Yuasa. Even the couple behind Batman and Spider-Man, Alex and Lindsay, animated 2 episodes for Adventure Time, Beyond the Grotto and Catch Up, which are quite the trip. Whoa! Also, I want to mention that Batman and Spider-Man is my only favorite show from Mono Media, and the goddamn Minecraft episode. But then there are overarching stories like the disturbing lore of Lemon Grab, Orkalork, PB's extended family, and the most important, the Lich Saga. He may be used sparingly, but that just proves how effective he is. I could make a video just about the list because it's that good. Oh, and then there is the miniseries that tell one continuous stories. Stakes, Islands, Elements are one of my favorite arcs in Adventure Time for the comedy, its lore, and the overlasting impact. And even if the finale had gold but cosmic horror that came out of nowhere, it was still good and had some amazing moments. Even then, it wasn't enough for me, because then came the HBO Max specials that slapped hard and felt more like a finale for individual characters. Heck, I even read the comics, something I never got into for other shows because I love Adventure Time so much. The idea of endless possibilities and that the stories span around years and years, beyond life and death. And everybody is the protagonist of their own world. All in all, Adventure Time is not just my favorite show and comic, but it's just my favorite experience that I shared with my friends. Brings me to tears. And this show is an obvious S rank.
The fun will never end, it's Adventure Time.
With all the crossover Scoop has had in this retrospective, it's insane that I haven't talked about an actual Scooby-Doo show. I like the show because never have I ever been so compelled about a goddamn Scooby-Doo of all things. I've seen more Scooby-Doo compared to things like Flintstones and other Hanna-Barbera shows. Shows and movies like A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, live-action movies, and Scoob. The failed pilot movie for the Hanna-Barbera version of the MCU were also experimental in their own right, but Mystery Incorporated is the most famous one of them all, taking a more mature and darker turn compared to its various versions throughout the years. Keep in mind, I wrote this before Velma aired, and yeah, it may also be experimental, but I'm not watching the show because Mindy Kaling was not the actor I remember from The Office because everything revolving around her was furiously boring, and BJ Novak was even worse. Sorry about that, I used to watch The Office. Heck, if you ask the biggest SD fans, which sounds like a sex disease, what the best shows are, this, also 13 Ghosts, is the best one. And they are right, Derek J. Wyatt was the art director, and that is always a plus for me. I'm also a fan of this insane take on the Scooby franchise compared to what came before and after, because almost anything else is not that lore heavy, and season 2 finale, which I won't spoil, it's up there with the most batshit insane endings Cartoon Network shows have brewed. We have an overarching mystery throughout the entire show, themes of reincarnation, reincarnation, mythology, destiny, and Velma finally coming out. Season 1 is good, but Season 2 is where everything goes from to 11 in terms of what is happening. There are 2 crossover episodes with other Scooby-Doo clones who will only be remembered for being clones. I can't believe that Blue Falcon is a recurring character in this retrospective that I forgot to mention. Out of all the Scooby-Doo shows I've seen, this might be the best I've seen, so it gets an A. Scoopy Snack. From the creative team of Man of Action, who were responsible for Ben 10, comes Generator Rex. The show loosely inspired, not based on to be specific, by Avalon, the subsidiary of Image Comics' Machina Rex that came and went as fast as I could process the show's existence. First time I saw this show was at a pizzeria. I don't remember which one. I think it's in Reykjavik on the highway close to NA. It doesn't matter. Oh yeah, I barely heard of this show when it aired and when it ended. Even the Ben 10 crossover was not good enough to hype up the show, probably because it was Ultimate Alien, which was trash. Although I liked the second crossover a little more that had nothing to do with the original Gen Rex show. And I kinda accept that people are gonna hate me for liking these stupid chibi remake shows cause I don't take this shit seriously. Anyway, Renerator Gex is very mid-show to be honest. Most of the characters are not that interesting to me and the action is fine, but I don't find it great because of the former criticism. Season 3's more drastic storytelling is kinda good. Characters I didn't care about get to be more interesting. Questions to many mysteries get answered, and the ending was good. Not great or amazing, just good. There's not much to say, so yeah, it's mid, so that's a B tier. Now let's talk about something terrible. Mad? More like, this show drove me mad. Bad! I used to read, and by read I mean look at because I couldn't read English, few of the Mad magazines and they were fun. When I heard about this show I thought I was gonna have some fun as well. And then I watched it and hated every single second. Mad is a sketch show based around the comic strips from the magazine itself and making fun of various movies, TV shows, and celebrities a la the likes of Robot Chicken, only with various art and animation styles. That is not just Seth Green playing with his action figures and made more PG. I mean, I thought Robot Chicken was funny even though I haven't watched it in a while. And I'm not saying a show based around Mad Magazine can't work. They already made one called Mad TV, and it's much funnier compared to this, although the only thing I remember is Will Sasso doing a flanderized Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. It's much funnier than this show. First I wanted to give this show a chance, but they just throw an unfunny joke after the other with its annoying fast pace that you start to lose your mind. I hope I don't lose my mind at the end of this retrospective. I say drop it like it's hot. That was terrible. D. Once upon a time, James Garland Quintel made an animated short about 2 guys doing drugs at their work at a convenience store, where they turned into Blue Jay and a Gumball machine. And CN decided to give him his own show. The second one was that spawned from Flapjack. The former cartoon 2 in the AM/PM gives this man a similar background to Eddy and Squirrel Boy. And if you ask me, I believe this show follows a similar success as the Eds. Regular show is everything but regular in its premise of anthro characters working in a public park where shit gets weird real fast, with sentient mixtapes, flying head of Donkey Kong record holder, and sometimes just real life shit like relationship issues, problematic working environment, and death. The concept, not the actual character. He's just kinda there. I didn't know what to think when I started watching this show and even where it was going. Some episodes are just the escalation of the norm in this world, and other times it becomes very emotionally invested with heartbreaks and tragedies. Mordecai and Rigby start off as annoying frat boys that are always the cause and later the solution of the problem, but get insanely deeper as the show goes on. The supporting cast are also very great, with Pops, who's just adorable, Benson, who I relate to on an emotional level that it scares me, Skips, played by Mark Hamill, who can't do no wrong, and Muscleman, who surprisingly gets the most depth of the entire cast, despite his very
weird impression. Also, high five goes to exist. I guess he doesn't contribute to anything. The most craziest thing I can remember from this show is the final season that happens in space, which in most shows it sounds like you have run out of ideas. But since it's the last season, that means it's peaked. Also, there is this vibe that the show was originally made by an older audience, which you can see in JG's Quintel's other show, Close Enough, which I highly recommend. I guess you can say it's a close enough comparison. And the finale that... Jesus Christ, do I need to make a top 5 what the fuck Cartoon Network finales? Because that's the only way I can describe it. You know what? This show's great. It gets an S. And you know who else gets an S rank? My mom! Hi mom, thanks for watching my stupid videos. The 4th Gendy show. Still haven't seen Primal, and Unicorn Warriors Eternal hasn't come out yet.
Unicorn Warriors Eternal.
The other giant robot show that got neutered by CN because they forgot to advertise it. Now they own it, but Gendy was too busy making money from the Hotel Transylvania movies, which I've only seen 2 of, 2nd and 4th for some reason. Anyway, Sym-Bionic Titan is a great show with Gendy being at his best with his visual storytelling, people that talk and move in ways only Gendy can make work, and animation that just flows in the most beautiful ways. Are you even listening to me right now? Out of all the 3 Gendy shows, I'd say this one unfortunately falls in 3rd place. Probably because as it is, there's not much to it compared to its predecessors, like with the surrealism of Dexter and the epic scale of Samurai Jack. The most noteworthy parts are its characters and their growth. Famous example being the snobby cheerleader Kimmy who falls for Octus, the AI who disguises himself as a thick boy, and it's mostly remembered for the twerk scene because of course it is. Kimberly's development reminds me of Pacifica's development in Gravity Falls that got more explored in the comics rather than its own show. I don't know, I just picked up that comparison or just made it up, or I've seen too much Pacifica porn. This show gets an A. Created by Michael Buckley, known for writing book series like Sister Grimm, Nerds, and Undertow, while the show was directed by Christy Caracas, who has worked on Adult Swim shows Super Jail and Ballmasters 9009. It's important to know about Carcass's previous and later works because Robotomy is his attempt to make more family-friendly show compared to those shows. And I've seen both shows and they're fine. I could do without them. Super Jail was a little funny but got tired after season 1. And Ballmasters 9009 has some moments and anime references that range from cool to that's kinda cringe. But what about Robotomy? I think the robots are not that fun, the animation is fine, but the art style is kinda bland and ugly with a disgusting yellow and green color scheme. And the show has a very annoying fast pace for 11-minute episode, but okay. There are 1 or 2 jokes that are funny, and it could be argued that the jokes could be funnier if this was more of an adult-oriented show, but if you think that, you have not watched the Cartoon Network show. But my favorite parts of the show are the guest actors playing weird one-offs.
We're declaring war on toddlers!
Oh yeah, and it's only 10 episodes long. Or if you count 20 minutes as a full episode, that makes it 5 episodes, making it one of the shortest CN shows there is. Well, 2nd shortest, but we'll get to that one later. Overall, I'll give this show a C. It's the DC show that dared to challenge the likes of Justice League and Teen Titans by being one of those love letters to the comics with its rich cast of DC mainstays, one-offs, or new kids on the block made for the show that were popular enough to be integrated into the comics, and long overarching stories. And with the show over, I think, unless it's gonna come back like how Season 2 was supposedly the finale, only for Season 3 to come out on a DC streaming service and was made more adult, did it succeed? I'm very mixed about this show. There are too many heroes and villains in the show to begin with, and unlike Justice League, Teen Titans, and Batman Brave and the Bold, where they had tons of cast members but knew how to balance main cast, supporting cast, and tertiary characters. Young Justice plays it off like every minor detail is important, like I was supposed to remember. And that does sound hypocritical of me to say, since I'm a big fan of One Piece and Adventure Time that does the same thing, but this show ran for much shorter time and condenses so much into so little time. Oh, but it's a DC show, so you should be familiar with them. Counter argument: if you don't have new fans in mind, that's gonna be very alienating. And even if I was a fan, I feel like the show focuses more rather on fan service, and its third and fourth season focus more on reminding you how mature and serious they have become with blood and their subject matter, as opposed to tell a comprehensive story. Sometimes I like the continuity in the show and some developments for some, like Satana, Superboy, Miss Martian, Will Harper, who is the clone of Roy Harper, spoiler for season 1, and Beast Boy, whose entire trauma is recapped in Teen Titans Go art style and is very fucked up and very funny.
We all have to go on a mission and die.
No!
But most of that happens in season 3 and 4. I didn't care that much for the first 2 seasons, and the last 2 seasons were kinda interesting because it felt like a totally different show. And then it ended with a cliffhanger that will probably never be resolved. Maybe it will come back, but at the moment, it's a B for Bumblebee shrinking so she can save her newborn baby by going inside the baby's lung. The show sucks! Problem Solverz is about a trio of neon-colored nightmares who solve problems in this neon-colored world, which I decided not to show video clips because I don't want to cause people seizures, so enjoy these still images. The show was made by Ben Jones, whose art is known for its saturated neon colors that look decent for what it is. Seeing the art in motion is a totally different story altogether. I may not suffer from epilepsy and it didn't bother me that much, but that is far from the worst aspect for me personally. What I personally don't like is the bland whatever these guys are, and the very try-hard random tone. It all comes off of this new era of CN not knowing what they want to do, so they just throw everything at the wall to see if anything will work in the end. Like, the premise is not good enough to keep me interested, and they don't even take the show to other places to expand on its initial concept. Well, with all the criticism out the way, is there anything I like about the show? Like Tuckstock? He somehow makes the show tolerable and it's just better than the trio. The show gets a D. Oh man, this is my shit. Made by Ben Boquillet. Comes the Gumball show about a blue cat and his goldfish brother landing in some wacky, crazy shenanigans that go into very weird places. This is the most beautiful show in terms of art style and aesthetics. 2D, 3D, claymation, stop motion, and one-time real life in this show of talking animals, food, cloud, and whatever those things are. Humans? I will admit that the early seasons are kinda meh, but at some point the show becomes something unhinged, crazy, and just outright metatextual. It's so hard to describe the show because everything happens. One character reveals something about themselves that changes the status quo forever. There's an episode where they just have an anime battle. One is where we just riff on that Chinese knockoff Miracle Star where they just murder them, and the goddamn ending that began with a former background characters disappearing from reality for being irrelevant, only for one of them, his name is Rob, turns into the main antagonist, and learning about that his existence is fictional and everything is coming to an end, and with the last scene of the show shows him falling into the wide void, and now I sit and wait every second until it comes back, and the only thing that has come out of a bunch of clip shows disguised as spin-offs, and oh my god, what was that banana drawing? Yeah, this is a fucked up show, and I love every second of it. It's just a furry version of The Simpsons if every episode is 22 short films about Springfield. Fun fact, I once went to a voice acting course and voiced a Gumball episode where I played the dad. I forgot how I sounded, so I was probably horrible. Tell me in the comments if I am a good voice actor or not. Also, like, comment, subscribe. Also, this show gets an S. Hey guys, I'm home from Sweden. My friend Vivi is gonna make a video about it very soon. Subscribe to them. Anyway, I found the DVD where I did the voiceover for Gumball. Let's put it in the DVD case. Oh wait, I don't have a DVD case, so let's just put it in my PlayStation 2.
God, remember those? Alright, here it goes. I hope this is the right... I don't think this is the right one. I think this is the one. Yeah, this is the one. Fuck. Fuck. Ah, fuck, this is not the one. This is me doing a cover of America's Unicorn. Don't listen to it. Oh god, no, no. Okay, take 2. False alarm, I forgot that the PlayStation 2 is the worst DVD player of all time, so I'm gonna try the PS4 now. Okay, it's the moment of truth. Let's see how terrible I was. Okay, I'm terrible. It's the 3rd experimental Looney Tunes show called The Looney Tunes Show. But what does a basic titled show like this do compared to babies, pop culture in space, superheroes, younger generation trying to live up to the original's expectations, and now after 28 years they're finally getting the limelight again? Seinfeld, anyone? Oh god, what is that?
I'm thinking about doing a bit about how being transgender is actually a mental illness.
Yeah, it's just the Looney Tunes living in the cul-de-sac and just landing in some wacky sitcom hijinks and such. And it's genius. For the first time, we get a glimpse into the Looney Tunes not just as goofy chaos bringers, but as 3-dimensional characters and very grounded humor that is beyond hilarious. And this is by far the most perfect depiction of Lola Bunny compared to bland sexy from Space Jam, Valkyrie bitch in Space Jam 2, or Diaper. The history of female counterparts for Bugs is weird, and Lola's definitely the 3rd time's the charm scenario here. Heck, Tiny Toons beat the originals with their first try, and yes, I'll use any excuse to talk about Tiny Toons. Fun fact, Looney Tunes The Laugh Riot was a scrapped show that shares very similar aesthetics. And there was the non-canon movie Rabbit's Run that was okay. Kristen Wiig doesn't voice Lola in that one, so it may affect how you view that movie. There are also the last episode that was just, what if Bugs was Superman? Okay. Why? Because the Man of Steel was coming out, so you just used another Warner property to hype it up? Was it worth it? No. S rank.
Or something about how transgender people are ruining the fabric of society.
The ThunderCats was a show I never got into. In fact, most 80s shows that weren't Transformers never did it for me, except Duckula, that was good shit. Shows like G.I. Joe, TMNT, He-Man, and DuckTales. Sure, I like the G.I. Joe movie, and I'm more of a fan of the later variation of the TMT. I already praised 22 He-Man show. Revelation was fun, and the DuckTales remake has no right to be this good. ThunderCats? I saw 1 episode of the old show in Greece, and a handful of episodes of this fan favorite show, and okay, at first I had this segment where I just said I didn't care that much about the clashing felines, but that sounds very boring, so I decided this segment should be a little more experimental. But now that I watched it all with a more clear vision, and I can give my honest opinion. This show reminds me a lot of He-Man 22, an obvious comparison with both being 80s toy property, given more of a mature and a serious take on cat people fighting a mummy with swords. Sure does awake something within the 40s, and some of the designs are more appealing compared to the 80s or the other one. The animation is good, the characters are interesting. This version of Lion-O reminds me of Optimus Prime from Animated. Also, the Wily Kitties are my favorite part of the show because they're so cute. The story can be investing, which cannot be understated when you ask a fan of the show. Only problem I have with the show are minor, like the love triangle subplot that went nowhere. Like, I get it, but that was kinda a waste of time. Then there is the finale that doesn't really feel like a finale and more of a sequel baking, but we left it in the oven for too long and now it's burned like the time I burnt my banana bread because I accidentally left it too long in the oven. And...
What the fuck am I talking about?
So yeah, TCAS 2011 is a solid show that left many fans salty, and I can see why. This show gets an A.
I want to see your tits, my dear.
And we reached the 4th super deformed comedy-based show based on a popular franchise, and it's the most short-lived of them all. Unlike these three, this one doesn't count since it's very much based on the 80s show rather than the already existing 2011 show, which I'm convinced that the 2011 fans have not seen either of these two shows. And to be honest, I get it. You go from this to this, and just as I thought everyone learned the lessons, they go full arc, ruin forever. But as someone who watched all the episodes, I think it's okay. As a comedy, I laugh from time to time.
It's Mumra! He's in the base! Oh, dang it, Tigra! I'll get you next time!
That was Mumra?
As an action show, the fight scenes are fun and the animation can be very fluid, and anyone who says otherwise does not know what they're talking about.
I legitimately believe that the people who made the show do not know how to animate and know literally nothing about art.
You shut your unkempt beard mouth up. Well, remember when I said this was gonna be the experimental segment? Because this is the first ThunderCats show I watched from beginning to end. Then I watched the 2011 one from beginning to end. And now I'm starting to watch the 80s show. That's right! The show everyone hates is the show that got me into the ThunderCats franchise. Kinda similar how I got into Astro Boy, but I did that out of spite for the terrible Imachi movie. And then I watched the very good 2003 show. So this segment is less about 2011 and Roar and more of an overview of the whole brand of ThunderCats. I went from 2020 silly, 2010 serious, and 1980s camp in a span of a week. And now I've become a furry, I mean a ThunderCats fan. And honestly, comparing one show to another is kinda childish. They should all be viewed as their own shows, and honestly, I like each and every one of them. Me, the guy who didn't care about ThunderCats at first, is now a big ThunderCats fan. Like 2011, this show also gets an A. The 80s one gets an A. Now let's move on.
Call the ThunderCats before!
Shut up, you fuck.
But first, out of two shows created by Peter Braungart, and both respective main characters appeared in the 28 pilot for the second show that came out a year after the first show got cancelled. Unfortunately, Secret Bound Fort Awesome, or SMFA for short, is perhaps an acquired taste, which is the nicest compliment I can give it, for there must be an audience for a gross out dude brah kind of show it is, and I personally don't vibe with it, and the fact that it got cancelled, perhaps it has something to do with the last episode being released only on iTunes. I think Cartoon Network didn't vibe with the show that much. There are like one or two good jokes. Total of two characters I thought were okay, and it's relatively short. Man, there's not that much to say about the show. That's the saddest part. Eddy.
And I shall call myself Green Lantern.
It's the Green Guardsman Show.
Green Guards?
Who would have thought they would make a spin-off of that one episode of Doc Dodgers with the green police guy who was barely even in the episode? The things they come up with at Warner Brothers. Jokes aside, it's a show about the most overrated version of the Green Lantern guy. The first one, and his adventures in space fighting bad guys who all originated from the mistakes from the Council of Smurfs' incompetence of balancing their mismanaged justice system. Haha! Police! The show is known for its new cast of original characters like Razor, the angry anti-hero, and Aya, the AI who learns how to feel emotion. I am not aware if those characters made it to the comics, but their story kinda continued in Young Justice, of all places, and it kinda felt like a good enough continuation. The show's alright. Green Lantern lore is interesting, and the show does pay tribute to many of the weird and obscure aspects of their world. But with how long the show lasted, all the cool ideas that the show wanted to explore just went away, with the exception of Razor and A dynamic, which is what most people remember. Personally, what I remember the most was Larfleeze, the DC answer to Gollum, and well, just look at him. He's so cute. With that, I give the show an okay rank of B. I was spending entire days making short videos with my younger brother. It all just blossomed from there. I remember sitting in my room for hours editing my videos with 2 VCRs. It was painstaking, but I loved it. There was something magical about making stories come to life right in front of my eyes, no matter how crappy those stories were. That was a quote from the creator of the web series Annoying Orange and the Cartoon Network show of the same name. And like everyone else, I used to watch these videos back in the day and liked them for a time. Then I stopped watching them because I got older and this humor was getting irksome. The web show is still ongoing with a varied degree of quality and even has spawned into shit ton of merch side channels where Dan plays video games in character, which is the most scaling type of video content I've seen. And lastly, this show, which also stars Toby Turner of Toboscus fame and other things I don't want to talk about. This is quite a maddening show, and not like in the I'm having a blast watching this, but more of this is giving me a headache. I just need to know, who thought this was a good idea, giving YouTubers TV shows? Like, wasn't the appeal of YouTube back in the day that you could make your own thing? Maybe it worked other times, but these two, other being Fred, whom I've come to appreciate after watching Quinton's review on him, did not last that long on TV, and even some episodes of the Orans are missing, which might be a blessing in disguise, because I can't find it in me to watch all of this sinfully boring and gets a D.
I'm fucking leaving. I don't fucking care.
Based on the DreamWorks franchise that is also based on a British children novel series, comes one of the many shows based on the Dragon movies. A well-known trend with DreamWorks making tons of shows based on their films. Not as much as Disney, but that's for another time. If you want to see that, who knows. Anyway, yeah, I love DreamWorks movies, some less than others, and the Dragon franchise, with it being a complete series that I've seen. I don't know if the TV show have anything to offer me in return. After seeing the movies evolve, unlike any other DreamWorks movie, characters and status quo constantly changing and even having a conclusive ending, the show happens in between the first and second movie, and now there is yet another Dragon show that happens in modern days, so it's more of a Dragon show in spirit if anything else. I know some friends that love Disney shows based on movies. Hercules, Lilo and Stitch, heck, even Ember's New School that I thought was mid at best. But DreamWorks shows are something I don't see a lot of people saying it's a must-see. Maybe Penguins of Madagascar or Boss Baby Back in Business for the meme. And from what I've seen from the Dragon show, it's alright. The message in the show gets easily translated back into the movies. It's kind of crazy how they got almost all the Hollywood stars from the movies to the show. The animation is stiff, but not terrible. I'd say give it a watch if you are really into the How to Train Your Dragons lore and hear how they pronounce the name Dagger.
Dagger. Dagger. Dagger. Dagger. Dagger. Daggers. Dagger!
B. And here is the weakest DC show of them all. The one with Katana as a lead.
This is Katana!
And Alfred, who looks like Ra's al Ghul's bodyguard Ubu. Beware the Batman is a bold new take on the mythos by being about his early days as the Bat Guy and his rogue gallery consisting on very obscure C-list villains. Which, sure, if the idea is to take characters that have not been given the spotlight as opposed to other Bat villains who have evolved into having their own mythos and even having their own shows and movies, but in the harshest way to describe them, they are portrayed as stand-ins for the more popular villains. Anarchy, Magpie, this guy I forgot he was in the show, Humpty Dumpty. Why does Batman have so many Alice in Wonderland villains? Where is the Duchess? The only standout villains are Professor Pig, who has been made more PG, and his heterosexual life made Mr. Toad, who has teeth. And I hate it. There are two well-known villains in this show that come off as the worst part of the show, being Ra's al Ghul, who eats shits and dies very quickly, and Deathstroke. And in case you forgot, the Teen Titans version is my only favorite version of Slade Wilson, and I'm still waiting for another one, cause this one, that ain't him. Also Harvey Dent, who does get deformed but looks like Hush because, I don't know. Fuck! I've been talking about how much the villains suck that I forgot to talk about anything else, and I won't blame myself because there's nothing to say. The CGI animation is on par with the Green Lights Dude show, but the design of the characters are pretty bad. Batman looks like someone hit him with a shovel. D! And yeah, there's not much to say about this show other than they did the scene from the Dark Knight with Two-Face and Joker, but Joker is replaced with Anarchy because he's Anarchy, baby. Not the same. Peter Braungard returns with his other show that is better than Smafa. Uncle Grandpa, the omnipotent creature a la the likes of Mr. Mixius Pitlick that is somehow related to every human that ever lived that goes on adventures and tries to help kids with their problem, but most of the time is the cause of the problem, or just solves a problem that wasn't there, if that makes sense. He's like the Cat in the Hat, but more chaotic neutral rather than chaotic good like he was in the book, so he's just Mike Myers. This show is either hated or said to be highly underrated, and it's neither of them. It's good, but I admit that it's a very acquired taste. I admit that I like the more dirty, unhinged look that the pilot rocked over the cleaner version the show is known for, but the comedy is just as good. I guess people who never watched this show only know it for the Steven Universe crossover that nobody liked except me, cause life is too important to hate on something that Uncle Grandpa used his god powers to make the episode non-canon. But killing Pizza Steve is unforgivable. Oh, the show, it gets an A.
That's your Uncle Grandpa for you. Drops in, shows you a good time, and then you never see him again. Just like your father.
Garnets, amethyst, and pearl.
John C.
The show that certainly had an impact on not just Cartoon Network, but just on animation as a medium. There can be an argument that something came first or did it better, but objectively, Steven Universe is best known for popularizing the positive representation of the LGBTQ community and not just used as a punchline for a very, very terrible joke.
I fucked your dad.
Anywho, this is the show I watched with my sister, and boy was that a journey. A show that plays off as a slice of life show that just happens to have aliens in it, that slowly becomes a show about existential character journey of one's identity, a lore revolving around a tyrannical kingdom, and even the ones you hold who are perfect is just as flawed. The show was made by Rebecca Sugar, a former writer and storyboard artist for Adventure Time, who wrote bunch of songs for said shows, and even more for her own show that were apparently based around their brother's childhood. Well, mostly the opening premise and probably not the rest of the show unless there's something I don't know. Like Steven starts off as your happy-go-lucky boy who's just the goodest boy in the world who gets challenged with the challenges of life that at first never does bother him at first, but the movie and Steven Universe Future, the 6th season epilogue, really does dwells into Steven's psyche, and it felt like a more proper ending to the show itself. The Crystal Gems are the most interesting trio of characters who start off as insane sitcom moms, get to be more and more fleshed out in this roller coaster of trauma after their experience of war, loss, and even trying to find their own place in the world. Other gems in this show are also just as interesting, even though they don't get as much attention with their story and are almost forgotten, or are most of the time just used for comedy and are just perfect for that. That does not matter. This show may be about some heavy themes, but it's also comedy and overall fun to see all the gems designed. In terms of its having flaws, yeah, it does have them, and some of them I do look past them for reasons, although the conflict of season 5 finale was very problematic, but Future kinda made up for it. The human casts are a very mixed bag, and though the best ones are very far and few in between, and the majority are kind of a drag. Lars kinda challenges the whole thing, and the animation errors are there, yes, but as someone who watched G1 Transformers, this does nothing for me. I don't think there's anything else I can say about Steven Universe other than I liked it a lot. S. Here is the only 2010 show, outside of few co-produced shows, that I had no idea what it was about. Like, I know a few things about every show in this retrospective, but this? I don't know what to say.
Okay, I did one Google search and apparently this is a show based on original Lego property. And no, it's not something cool and interesting like Bionicle, Knight's Kingdom, Jago, or the Lego movie. That's for later. But the Mixels, who look like the weird abomination creatures at the end of the Lego movie. And I gotta say, this is obnoxious. It's about these block creatures who speak like cavemen running around being annoying creatures, but at least the show spares us with every episode being around 2 minutes or less. I gotta say it's good to have the foresight to see that the pixels don't have the staying power to hold a 11 to 30 minute episode because they don't have a plot. Is it also criticism towards the show that the writers don't have the imagination to write anything interesting from something so simplistic? One of my favorite things is when you have the most basic premises but can make something amazing from it, like Amphibia. Or I'm just overthinking about this show for babies. Then I realized that was only season 1, while season 2 has 30-minute longer episodes. Maybe watching those longer special episodes would change my mind. No, I'm not gonna do that. The show gets a C. It ain't horrid, but it ain't good either. Ah yes, Tom and Jerry, the comedy classic that defined animation slapstick and has lasted for so long. With its highest of highs and 2021 movie comes the Flash animated 2014 show that is definitely a Tom and Jerry show. Like there's nothing wrong with the show except for maybe there is nothing much to say about it. Best way to describe this evergreen show is safe. I don't want to be one of those everything was good in the old days kind of guy, but Tom and Jerry kind of peaked back in the day. Like nothing compares to the 40s, to the 50s, the one made by Chuck Jones or Gene Deitch, the movie where the duo talk and become friends and save a little girl from capitalism, which might be a bad movie, but I liked it and remembered it compared to this show. I'm not seeing the weird crossover movies that exist for reasons we will never know why. So maybe your children will like this, but then again, maybe they will like Tom and Jerry Kids, or Tom and Jerry Tales, or the anime. Oh my god, it's so cute. See? Made by Skylar Page, who got Me Too'd, comes a show about raw, unfiltered childhood and all the chaotic kid energy it has. Clarence is just a little boy who goes to school and makes friends while being a simple creature with
hello, Sumo. You want some applesauce?
Special needs. His best friends are Jeff, who creeps me out and has 2 moms.
Buddy G, 2 moms and me, growing our own family tree.
And Sumo, who is somehow the most normal of 3 boyos and gives me Clam from Camp Lazlo vibes. This show has 2 moods. Either it's unhinged, that comes from how the kids look and act, or somewhat profound with how some episodes focus on characters that isn't Clarence and feels like they are more than their archetypes. Everything just goes with the flow, and that is a weird description for a show like Clarence, which is quite the feat. Surprisingly, the show continued when Skylar got fired for, and didn't have a drastic change like Dexter's Lab or Powerpuff Girls. A weird blessing from above. I recommend this show. It's not as obnoxious as you think it is. There are some self-awareness there, so it isn't screaming in your face all the time. Also, yeah, I know the whole story about Skylar. I just didn't want to get into this uncomfortable topic. The
loveliest lies.
And here is the 3rd and final show spawned from Flapjack that I'm talking about, because Gravity Falls is Disney, and if you really want me to talk about Disney shows, then you know what to do. So this is a horror show in the night garden, little garden, over the garden wall. A miniseries about horror, which, if you didn't know, is something that Cartoon Network does surprisingly well. All around classics. I gotta say, it's very refreshing to have a show that is not an overall comedy. There are funny moments in the show from time to time, but its overall tone comes mostly from the creepy aesthetics, the ongoing story about the woodsman, and the dynamic between the brothers. Though the loud and fast shows, it's nice to have a quiet and slow show. The greatest surprise the show brings us is the amount of celebrities voice casts. Chris Lloyd, Elijah Wood, Jim Curry, John Cleese, and many, many more. Good stuff right here, so it gets an S. I have a brain disease called being a Sonic fan. I discovered Sonic on the internet from playing Sonic Flash and watching lots of sprite and or flash animation around the blue bird. For a long time I didn't play the games, which I guess was a blessing in disguise, but recently I played good and or decent ones. But my love for Sonic mostly comes from the comics, the movies, and the TV shows. Shows like Adventures of Sonic, which was a thing that exists. Sonic Sat AM, that was good, but I like the Archie take better. Sonic Underground, that I haven't seen. Sonic X, where I watched few of the first episode with my friend. Then I skipped to the third season that ripped off Dragon Ball GT, and that was the only good part of Sonic X. And the topic of this segment, Sonic Boom. Also, I've watched Sonic Prime, it was good, but as I'm writing this, there are only 8 episodes. Sonic Boom was the most controversial thing to happen to Sonic at this point in time, which is saying a lot. With its game being a buggy mess, and the show that came 2 days before the actual game was released. And the show is probably the best thing to come out of the Boomverse. Also, I heard the 3DS games are decent, and the Sonic Boom Archie comic is comedy gold. And yeah, it's by far the best Sonic show I've seen. It isn't saying much, but still, I like it a lot. I like the stupid meta humor, the portrayal of Eggman being a goober and Knuckles being a feminist.
You know, Amy, anytime someone calls attention to the breaking of gender rules, it ultimately undermines the concept of gender equality by implying that this is an exception and not the status quo.
The weird-ass animal characters made only for this show that feel like regulars from Simpsons, with how this show is written like a sitcom. And I've said this once and I'll say it again and again, the CGI animation does not bother me as much as it does a lot of other people. Not everything can be Pixar perfect, and that's okay. Granted, if you would have asked me back in the day what kind of show I wanted, I would probably say, just a Dark Lion Flinch run from Archie. But now I've become more of a realist than an optimist when it comes to these sort of things, and I just accept what I got. And as I said with ThunderCats, we need to appreciate various adaptations. Sometimes you do your own thing and not just repeat the same thing over and over again. Something Disney remakes, which I've only watched the Aladdin one. This show gets an A. We got another TF show, and it's a sequel to everyone's favorite TF show that's not animated, Transformers Prime, which took the same dynamic of animated but replaced Prowl, cause let's be honest, who cares about Prowl, with RC, who looks and acts more like Chromia. And even the show starts with Starscream getting rid of Megatron very early in the show, just like animated. But I'm not here to talk about Prime with its more mature tone, but the sequel with its more kiddie-friendly tone and is regarded as the most mid-TF show with how toyetic it is compared to most TF shows that came around the same time. Okay, second most compared to Transformers Go. And maybe I should have checked out Rescue Bots, a show that people like more than Rid 2015, which is hilarious. I liked Bumblebee in Prime, but only because he didn't talk. I've never been a fan of Bumblebee losing his voice because the movie botched that idea, and Cyberverse made it a little annoying, but Prime made it charming, and here he becomes a very meh character in return when he gets his voice back. But does the new cast make up for it? Well, some of them. I enjoy Drift and his 2 adopted sons. Grimlock is very charming, and Strongarm, when she's not bickering with Sideswipe, is okay, but I genuinely don't care for Sideswipe or Fix It in the slightest. They're either very annoying or not interesting. Also, there are the human companions, Danny and his son Russell, who live at a scrapyard sale and just like the show, are very mid. The episodes are your typical monster of the week, with them capturing a bunch of random animal-based Decepticons, who are mostly new guys made for the show and will never appear again, like Ped. You guys like Ped?
He's voiced by Mandark. Like with all the Beast Wars names they could have put in this show, they made a bunch of weirdos who make this show very forgettable. The only one I and everyone else likes is Steeljaw, who was reinvented from a Golden Lion cassette to a Blue Wolf car, became more iconic than his G1 counterpart, and as much as I like G1, new ideas are always welcome. A hypocritical thing for me to say is I complain about the original characters. Some TF Prime cast members come back for some fan service, like Starscream, who gets some ugly G1 redesign compared to his fabulous high heels, but it's not as bad as Soundwave. My favorite part are the story arcs with the Stunticons, which I praised in my top 5 best combiners list, about Menasor with the dueling personalities clashing with their combined form, and the Autobot console that was fairly short but still an interesting idea. Every Transformers show are built upon interesting ideas with various results. This show had a little too many with combiners, minicons, and power links. Hey, wait a minute. I think the show is decent altogether, and personally I liked its Japanese title more. Robots in Disguise is too generic and it's not as good as the other Robots in Disguise show that had Skybite and the whole 9/11 controversy. B for Bumblebee Doing Yoga. We'll be there. Based on Daniel Chong's webcomic 3 Bear Bears that is surprisingly funny, comes this wholesome ass show about 3 bears doing normal human things in human society. That or trying to be internet famous. This show loves memes. Grizzly, the every bear, Panda, the weeaboo who really wants to get laid. Haha, funny because pandas are too lazy to fuck, and the fan favorite Ice Bear who has an axe on him all the time, along with a fun cast of supporting characters like Charlie the Bigfoot, and their antagonist Nom Nom, the cute famous koala, which I don't get. Koalas are nasty creatures. This show's greatest aspect for me is its chill vibe, and apart from talking animals, this is the most slice of life show you can find in this retrospective, if Clarence is too much of Clarence for you. And as someone who has watched his fair share of slice of life cartoons and enjoyed, 3 Bear Brothers might be top tier. Also, it got a movie that felt like the perfect finale for like 2 years. Currently running is We Baby Bears, which is based on the handful of episodes where the bears were, well, babies. I guess it was that beloved by the fans. Heck, the final page of the webcomics is about the baby bears, so naturally this feels like the perfect adaptation. Going for a more marketable baby bears is a smarter choice marketing wise. I mean, look at all these bears. Don't you want to buy them? Please buy them! Hey.
Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits.
What is this? Like the 4th Looney Tunes show I'm talking about? And it's okay, kinda gives me a similar vibe to the 2014 Tom and Jerry show, but this show does keep some of the unhinged vibe as the old shorts, unlike the Cat and Mouse show that felt very safe. But I guess the people didn't care that much about this show, since what came before was the best thing of all time. And for a show that goes back to the roots of its origin, the 2020 show could be argued as being a superior one. What I find interesting about this show, apart from the name, is that it took until season 2 to be like, hey, maybe we should have the rest of the Looney Tunes and not just Bugs the Bun. There are some new characters here, but will they come back? No, the designs here are noteworthy. Alright, let's do it. This is fine. Yeah, that looks kind of terrible. Oh god, look at that Elmer Fudd. Oh god, oh, this is worse. Oh, what did they do to my boy? Oh no. I do not like that. Okay, Falkland. Ew! Ew! It's unhinged. It looks like he has killed people. Alright. Okay, this one is worse. This is actually the worst one. No argument here. Okay, so they decided to redesign him by giving him clothes for the first time. I guess that's an improvement. But then again, no one gives a shit about Pepe Le Pew. It looks demonic. Oh god, no! Ew! Ew! It is a B for Buns Bugsy. Cool!
Another Scooby-Doo show, and it's the most infamous I know of. Scrappy-Doo wasn't that terrible, you guys. The one with a Brickleberry look, and as someone who has seen one episode of Brickleberry and 3-ish episode of Paradise PD, this Scoop show looks 100% better than those two. Be Cool Scooby-Doo, as dumb as that title is nothing out of the ordinary compared to other Scooby shows. In fact, like Mystery Incorporated, this show tried to do something bold compared to the majority of Scoop shows, beside the art style. This show gave Daphne a new personality of a weird girl to make her stand out more compared to her older incarnation. And yeah, when asking old Scooby fans, Daphne is not the favorite one for most people because of her gender roles and mostly used for hand service. But it wasn't good enough, and she just went back to her old girl boss self, which was also a take on Daphne they did, and it mostly stuck. But overall, this show is your by-the-book Scooby-Doo show, and if you have not seen this show, check it out, it's fine. It's no Mystery Incorporated, What's New, Where Are You, or a pup named Scooby-Doo, but at least not Velma, show I've not seen and will never see. I give this a high B. Oh yeah, I forgot Shaggy's trans in the show.
Shaggy's a man. Another first. Take that, Uncle Dave.
S.
Trans rights. Previously on Long Live the Royals.
Made by a regular show storyboard artist Sean Shellis, comes a very short show about silly British monarchs doing random wacky things. And since it's a miniseries, I'll make it short. It's okay, B. Based on the children book series by the Howell couple, James and Deborah, comes the show that only 8 out of 104 episodes were shown on CN, only to be moved to Boomerang, the channel that mostly just showed reruns of Hanna-Barbera shows and has only recently decided to release their own shows, like the other 3 shows I'm talking about, or Scooby-Doo and Guess Who, and a reboot of Wacky Races that nobody watched. The show is animated in Flash, and from time to time can look very good when given the time and talent, while other times it's rigged puppets constantly on the move that look like shit. Nothing amazing like Wak Fu, but nothing terrible like The Nut Shack. Anyway, the show is cute, characters are simple enough to like, and it has that Scooby-Doo charm of being about horror without it directly being horror. I give it an A. It's the web shorts turned into a show with the gimmicky swords that Eric Bauza screams the name of in every episode, like Benjamin Tanjamin did.
Mighty Magiswords!
In the adult serious show that were bad, and the Game Grumps are voice actors in this, mostly Eric, who plays like 10-ish characters. And Dan plays himself, doing his DJs in PJs voice.
I'm Dan. And Gal, you're the first team to beat my maze in quite some time. That's right, tiny ladies. Me, Draco, and our dog, Sergeant Fidoodle, are here to give you awesome life advice.
Man, I remember one of shitty Mondo Media shows more than I care about talking about this show. Not gonna lie, this show is kinda boring. The humor is just explaining the joke as it's being performed. Not much to say about the cast. The brother-sister dynamic is okay, though it has been done better in other shows. And the art style mimics a rubber hose style look that can only work if it moved like such. In my opinion, maybe this is okay for you. Radicles from OKKO makes a cameo in the last episode, and oh boy, I really want to talk about that show compared to this show, because I don't have any strong feelings towards it. See?
You guys want to take another crack at it? Or do you need to sit out a turn so you can cry for your momsy-womsy?
Mickey Mouse.
It's been a while since we got another Justice League show, not counting Young Justice, and it's the most short-lived of them all. This show follows a very similar tone to The Brave and the Bold, especially with a bigger focus on Plastic Man and Booster Gold. Also Firestorm is in there, but the Brave and the Bold version was much better in my opinion. And with the episodic formula of heroes team up fighting bad guys. Some new features like John Constantine, a very non-family friendly magic man, and Dexter, the angriest cat in the world. The show came and went away so abruptly that it was kinda shocking.
Maybe it clashed with what DC wanted to focus more on with their gritty animated movies and shitty live-action movies, so they just pulled the plug on it. And don't get me started on the decline of the CW shows, except Legend of Tomorrow. That show was good.
Yeah, his girlfriend's a guy. Anyway, this is too much for me.
Which is a shame, because this show is tons of fun. Any show that features Darkseid in a taxi and John Lovitz in a Superman outfit is doing something right. It may not be as smart and deep as the DCAU, but it's hella charming. I give it an A. Oh my god, I get to talk about this show finally! This is quite the rarity, because I knew about this show even before it aired, since I watched the old pilot that was almost forgotten, and just thought it would just be a one-off pilot that went nowhere. Boy, were we dumb. That short came out in 2013, but then in 2016, we got a few shorts in a row where the characters got some cleanup. Then 2017 rolls around, and we got a show. One noteworthy thing, since it's the rarest case where I watched every episode when they were coming out and finished it to the end. Also Steven Universe Future. So yeah, I've been kind of following this show for a while, from its pilot to finale, and man, this is good stuff. This show does almost everything I want out of a show. A truly masterpiece of a passion project where you and your friends have come together to put almost any wacky idea in a show and make it work. The utmost glow by its creator Ian Jones Quartet is something to behold, since I knew of him first from Bravest Warriors. Although my gripes with this show are very minuscule. At first I thought the old pilot name was better than the show's actual name, but I've grown to like it. Sometimes I felt the dialogue was a little babyish, and obviously the very on-the-nose disdain in season 3 finale that they had planned more after the show ended. But all in all, everything else I love to death. I love the overarching story about the goodest of boys, KOs, and his family and his dark self, the funny stupid ways the show tackles subject matter like gun control. I love the characters like Lord Boxman and his dumb robot children, Mr. Gar, KO and his co-workers and friends like Dendy. Oh, and the stupid amount of crossover with the crazy of things, Captain Planet, Sonic the Hedgehog, and just all the Cartoon Network current and former stars, and yet another Scooby-Doo crossover, but not with the Scooby Gang, but the Monster Girls from the Ghoul School TV special, which is like the most obscure of Scooby-Doo cuts, even more than fucking Flim Flam. I'm impressed I stuck through this show for so long, and thankful to Ian for making it. S. Hey, remember the Lego movie? That was a movie that had no right to be that good, surprisingly. Their version of Batman was popular enough to get his own movie. Apart from the licensed characters, there were few original characters, and for some reason, Unikitty got a show, and it's voiced by Tara Strong, cause of course he is, and it was okay. I like Unikitty fine, and her friends are fun too. The humor is quick-paced, that works sometimes. I think the animation and the look is good enough. I am, however, fascinated by these Lego-based shows that's 2D animated, like Monkey Kid, a show that was animated by the same guys who worked on Rise on TMNT, Glitch Tech, and Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. In short, it's gold. It reminds me how there are two Muppet Baby shows and neither of them uses puppets. In short, this show is fine, a high B, or low A, it doesn't matter at the end of it.
Welcome.
So, this is a deranged show, but then again I am deranged who makes deranged videos, so it's perfect.
Apple and apple, not welcome.
This show was made and stars George Skendi, who plays the titular Apple, and also stars, but not made by, Richard Ayoade of IT Crowd fame, and also stars in my favorite show Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, who plays the titular Onion. I knew nothing about the show apart from Richard Ayoade, and I had no knowledge of its critical response. Then again, I don't look up or watch other people's reviews on shows, because I want to write these reviews as my opinion. But reading bad IMDb reviews is kinda funny. Lame, stupid, who made this? It's food with faces.
No. This show can best be described as Flight of the Conchords for a younger audience, mostly because the main duo like to sing, and for the most part, these songs are alright. Also like that show, it has this dry, awkward, and cringy humor where App and Un do weird and stupid things like causing a train accident. I think this show is very charming and even hilarious from time to time, which was a surprise. Some people may look at this show and go,
This is not okay. This needs to stop now. This is garbage. This is so much garbage that can make an awful smell that will get me brain dama.
But really now, who the fuck cares? Make your own decision. If I say a show you love is bad, then just go and watch it more cause you like it and tell me why you love it. It's always fun to hear what other people have to say in a positive way. Also like this vid, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that.
This is important. Let's check it out. Good.
Apple and onion gets an A. The third and final TF show I'm gonna talk about. Like OKKO, this was a show I watched all the episodes when it was coming out, and this might be just as good as animated. I mean, this show has Skybite in it.
It is I, Skybite.
And McAdams.
There will be no fighting here.
Well, okay, season 1 was a slow burn with the whole getting Bumblebee his voice and memories back, and he is by far the least interesting character in the show, because everything else from the main stage like Optimus Prime, Megatron, Soundwave, and newcomers like Clopper, Shadow Striker, and Wild Wheel are top-notch in the show. Even weird takes on Grimlock are perfect. Although season 1 was okay with one episode standing out where they fucking murdered Blur, season 2, 3, and the 2 specials are my favorite TF things I've seen, and compared to what was coming out on Netflix, I take Cyberverse any day. And goddamn, this is criminally short. They went kinda far with some iconics to obscure TF content that gets me in the feels, and as rushed the finale was, I felt like the 2 special made up for it. Man, if it weren't for the specials, I would be kinda sad. Although, I would prefer the continuation of Transform Animated. This was solid stuff. S. I kinda forgot to mention this back in the Teen Titans Go section, which by the way, I don't think Go is better than the original. That was a joke. They are equally good. But I forgot to mention DC Nation. It was a collection of DC shorts made by different animators that may or may not have been a bunch of pilots to make into shows. Some were good. Others were
Superman of Tokyo.
That felt like a fever dream, but 2 of them, being New Teen Titans, which you can tell from the super deformed look, may have been the inspiration for Teen Titans Go. It was also Super Best Friends Forever, that obviously spawned this show, and Super Best Friends Forever sounds like a better title, cause this one could easily been confused by the other show of the same name. These shorts and this show was made by Lauren Faust, Craig McCracken's wife, and a fellow cartoonist who helped develop Foster's Home with Craig, and also went to create My Little Pony show that...
Hang on, hey, I've got the same both toy, and it turns out I want Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash.
People went crazy over for...
Alright, so I'm pretty sure you're aware of Princess Celestia being portrayed as a tyrant, an air troll, and God forbid, a molester.
Speaking of My Little Pony, even after she left the show around the 2nd season, you can really tell she had some of MLP energy put into the show. This show, named after another show that was also set in a school, is interesting. The plot is basically an AU of DC heroes and villains set in high school with many high school tropes, and unlike the predecessors, this is more tame in comparison and at least has some form of seriousness put into it. The main cast of Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Fluttershy, and the others that don't have My Little Pony comparisons are a fine bunch. The rest of the supporting characters are very weird. They are written in this way, like how girl-oriented shows write boys. They are stupid, that's the joke. The villains are very one-note and get strange gimmick, school reporter Penguin and rockstar Ra's al Ghul, with the exception of the iconic lesbian Ivy and Harley, and since the show is written by the My Little Pony Gen 4 creator, we get a bunch of morals learned at the end of the episode that we get from every high school based shows. Sometimes we don't learn anything at all, like the stupid egg episode that every school show does. The weirdest aspect of the show to me are the numerous Teen Titans Go crossovers that would not be a major factor to point out, except the crossover movie served as the show finale. This might be one of the weirdest CN show endings out there, not by content, but by the presentation. There's generally nothing wrong with this show. It might just be your personal preferences that will decide what you feel about it. I'm not madly in love with it, but I like it nonetheless. A.
But what does an oddball such as myself consider manly?
It's time for a show with some Hispanic representation. Because if Disney likes doing it, why not Cartoon Network? Also, Nickelodeon did that too, before Disney decided to make a handful of it. Remember when Disney tried to copyright the Day of the Dead holiday? And for those who are asking if you think I forgot about Mucha Lucha, I didn't. It's just I'm not talking about the 10 other networks under CN and the ones who own CN. Oops, I'm getting off topic. Victor and Valentino has been described as being like Gravity Falls, which is a funny coincidence since the Parban brothers Joss and Justin are credited as art directors for the show, and Gravity Falls itself. Also DuckTales, which did have an episode set in Mexico. And yeah, this is just Gravity Falls with more Aztec and Mayan mythology in it, and it's pretty neat. The half-brothers dynamic is fairly decent, depending on how you feel towards both boys. Valentino is more mellow and reminds me a lot of Steven Universe, and Victor is quite grating at the beginning of episodes. Best part of this show is its emphasis on Mexican culture. The show also has the weirdest of crossovers with a Latin American Cartoon Network show, Villainous, aka It's Just Evil Con Carne. And like the Uncle Grabba Steven Universe crossover, it's not canon. Despite me picking on Disney before, I fairly liked their shows that focused on Hispanic characters, and sometimes dwell on their heritage that I find cool. That's quite the best way to describe this show. It's kinda cool. Little bumps here and there, so it gets a fair A. Finally, the two dads and a baby show I never knew I wanted. The story of Mau Mau Mau, yes, that's his full name.
Dude, is your name Mau Mau Mau?
I don't want to talk about it, okay?
And his friends working as sheriffs at Pure Heart Valley, hilarity ensues. This show marks the first time I get to talk about the legendary animation studio Titmouse, who have been doing a fine job making some good stuff for 23 years. They worked on a handful of Adult Swim shows, the Animaniac reboot, and that cursed zebra cartoon from the Freddy Got Fingered movie. Do you even remember that movie? I will never forget.
He's a child molester!
What was I talking about again? Oh yeah. Mau Mau. Mau Mau is generally a fun show that I had no prior knowledge on. It's also very short, which is a shame because if you ask me, this show reminds me of Mighty Magiswords in terms of medieval-esque setting, but isn't very obnoxious. I don't know, there's just something that draws me into the show more, like how Mau Mau is kind of a dick, but is still written to be likable. Adorabat just existing. King Snugglemane, who is just the gayest thing and I love him. The main villain is called Orangasnake, who is just a snake and orangutan in a codependent relationship. That fucking theme song. And the episode about Adorabat's past that just, oh my gosh, the feels. Look, the show's just good. Great even. A. Badger Clops is alright though.
Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Yeah. Come on, motherfuckers, come on. Come on, motherfuckers, come on.
Hop on board. This is the last show I'm gonna talk about, starting a train of talking cats and existential trauma. Holy shit, Infinity Train is so good, and I did not expect what I was getting into. An anthology show about broken people going aboard a train of bullshit, with origin and how it makes sense will never be explained, because the show ended prematurely with 3 good seasons and an okay 4th season. I wonder what about the show drew me into it for a while. And it's not the setting, the characters, or the stories, but the tone and the subject matter really interested me. Although I do question the logic of the train's purpose. Problems every character goes through gets treated with respect and care. Oh, and every season has their own protagonists. The first season is about Tulip, a girl who wants to make video games and eats onions, who has to deal with her parents getting divorced. Relatable. The second season is about one of the denizens of the train, a mirror clone of Tulip who wants to live her own life instead of being a reflection. That got very existential at the end. Third season. Fucking, I'm not gonna spoil anything. That shit went so hard. It's the darkest shit I've seen from Cartoon Network, and I don't know if they can ever top that. And the fourth season was fine. Like, I get it, you wanna mellow down after all that, but it could have been better. And with that said, the final show in this retrospective gets an S. But now let's do my top 10 best shows and bottom 5 worst shows. Start with the worst.
Number 5.
Squirrel Boy. At this point, I should just watch Duckman.
Number 4.
My gym partner's a monkey. My friends made this joke about the show being called My Gym Partner's a Monk, and I think putting the theme song from that show in there was worth it.
Number 3.
Mad. Apart from the Spy vs. Spy tunes, everything is overall terrible. Problem Solverz. I lied. It does hurt my eyes. Ike, Lou, and fucking Og. What is worse than being terrible? Being boring. I'm not gonna go through the rest of the shows like other ranking videos do, because I think it's stupid. Everything in A, B, and C rank can be changed if I feel like looking back at these shows. But let's go to the S rank and see what are my top 10 favorite CN shows.
10. No, you're doing, stop pressing it.
Okay, KO. Everything between 9 and 1 are shows that I have more attachment to, since this show is rather recent in memory, but still good enough.
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go. I like them equally.
Number 8.
Justice League and Unlimited. My gateway to DC Comics.
Number 7.
Batman Brave and the Bold. If Justice League is my gateway, then Batman Brave and the Bold is my true love of DC Comics. Gumball. Please bring it back.
Number 5.
Ed and Eddy. Fuck America. Powerpuff Girls. Fucking zombie magician.
Number 3.
Transformers Animated. I can talk about that show all day. Kids Next Door. Maybe it's my realistic half that made me say I was okay with Galactic K&D not being a thing, but the optimistic half says otherwise. Or was it the obsessed half?
But I want it now!
Number 1.
Adventure Time, a show I enjoyed every second of when the new episodes came out, and also watched with my friends. Also, I'm excited for the Fiona and Cake show. I relate to this Simon a lot. And you might be thinking, what does it matter what I think? Well, ask my friends if they wanted to share their opinions on their favorite shows. And I hope as I'm writing this and recording this, people cared enough to actually do it, but what are the chances of that happening?
See, when I was your age, we watched a show called The Crap Twins. Not because we liked it, but because it was the only thing on during the middle of the night. It's about these twins. One is blue, he's the evil one, and I don't remember his name, but the white good one, his name was Girl Pants. And Girl Pants has a friend who's like a swamp gnome, and the blue evil one wants to eradicate the swamp in some episodes, but Girl Pants doesn't allow him to do that because the little swamp gnome family lives there, and they're like behind his house and stuff. Anyways, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to be epic.
There's a lot I could have talked about, but I want to take a minute to encourage you to go watch Camp Lazlo. It's not necessarily the Cartoon Network show dearest to my heart, but it's one that I think about very often. It captures the essence and feeling of being a kid so well, and how you have to make your own fun all the time, like staring at a pine cone. It's an excellent way to hone one's flag capturing skills. I love the fact that the animals used for the characters are all non-standard ones that you wouldn't normally see in another show with animal characters. There is not a single character who is a dog. Instead, we have a banana slug. I love Slinkman so much. The show also has some fantastic art direction. Einar, put some backgrounds on screen if you'd be so kind. Like, just look at how pretty that is. The color palette has such a warm, summery feeling to it. I just like the show a lot. That and the show taught me what a platypus was, and I feel like I should get points for that.
One of my friends didn't want to do a voiceover, but they did want to take part, so they wrote a script for me, and I'm gonna read it right now. Adventure Time is a great show. It's got something for everyone. A sweet story sprinkled in between random episodes of everyday life in the post-apocalyptic land of Ooh. Whether you like the randomness of an old tiny elephant biting into a crystal apple and later fall in love with a pig, the more theory-included episodes, or the Ice King tragic backstory, characters are cool, colorful, and fun. And yes, I guess Justin Roiland was there. The story is about Finn the human boy, who is for some reason the last human on Earth, and his adopted brother Jake, who is a dog who has similar powers like that Rubber Man character for that anime about seamen. Personally, I like Marceline, the bisexual battle axe space playing goth vampire queen, also Bimo. The songs are amazing, many played by Marceline, but the originals are great and just as jamming for a colorful children's show like Adventure Time.
Baking pancakes, making bacon pancakes.
What makes Adventure Time great for me personally is not the art style, as easy it is on the eyes, not the eye-bleeding techno color palette, or any of these good points I have already mentioned. No, it's the fact that if I looked into it closer, the aftermath of the Great Mushroom War can be seen everywhere, and this cartoon has the balls to have LGBT representation. It's slowly happening to cartoons, and that's great. Watch Adventure Time, smiley face.
Come along with me, and the butterflies and bees. We can wander through the forest and do so as we please, living so merrily.
I love Flapjack.
I am going to talk about my favorite show for a pretty short amount of time. Hey, one show that I did grow up with that I really liked back then was The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. It is a show that did exist in Cartoon Network, and it's still one of my favorites to this day because of the weird unhinged humor that it has. The show doesn't have one main character. It has what is called a tritagonist. English is hard. So we have three main characters: Flapjack, the child that means well, and also the character that the show is named after him, and Captain Knuckles, the weird little creature Blue Man. I'm not even sure if he's human. And then we have Puppy, the real and the adopted not father, but it would be kind of cool, but hey. Of Flapjack, who is the best part of the show. Even with its unhinged humor, it does have wholesome moments in the show, mainly with Puppy and Flapjack, and I think that's very cute. Puppy doesn't really like Knuckles, and they're like divorced parents. I would rather say Knuckles would be rather the weird uncle that Puppy doesn't want around their kid. But we're not here to talk about that. The humor is something else when it comes to what was airing at the time on Cartoon Network. Like, I would consider like Chowder a little bit, but more unhinged at times. Like, one of the does stick to mind that comes up when somebody mentions the show is probably the cat close-up. Like, what the fuck? But hey, it's pretty funny. This show is mainly about Captain Knuckles telling Flapjack about this mystical island called the Candy Island, and it's a place made out of candy. but we never get to see them reach it in the show. There was one time where they did get to see it, if I remember correctly. And also, I'm pretty sure Candy Wife is from the place, so it's not really a mystical island. It's an actual place. But, hey. But the show ended up with them eating too much candy from Peppermint Larry's bar, the husband of Candy Wife, that they end up turning realistic, quote unquote. And I'm getting kicked out of Storm Long Harbor because they looked so revolting to everybody, even though the whole point of Storm Harbor is everything looks revolting, but Flapjack, Bubby, and Knuckles look too much revolting to everybody. So it was a weird ending, but ending nonetheless. And we do get the final final shot with Bubby and Flapjack, having like a wholesome moment. It's been so long since I've seen that scene, so don't quote me on that. But hey, yeah, it's one of my favorite shows from my childhood, teenage years, I guess. Too old, but hey.
So, whenever people mention Cartoon Network, there is one show that always comes to my mind, and that is Adventure Time. Now, why is it Adventure Time? I did not grow up with Adventure Time. Adventure Time came out when I was a teenager. You know, I grew up with Dexter's Laboratory and Powerpuff Girls. For the most part, those shows came out when I was a baby, but I grew up with them, you know. Whereas Adventure Time came out when I was a teenager, and I was kind of close to adulthood. So why is Adventure Time the one show that always comes to my mind whenever people talk about Cartoon Network? Well, I think the reason is actually pretty simple. Adventure Time has just boundless creativity and imagination. Like, it is the quintessential cartoon show, in my personal opinion. Now, you don't have to like the humor. You don't have to like the jokes. You don't even have to like Adventure Time at all. But you have to acknowledge just how impressive that show is. Like, just the sheer amount of, how do I put this? Well, just the insane amount of creativity. Like, the sheer magnificent display of imagination and passion. Just, I'm not very good at explaining myself, but I guess my point is, Adventure Time is honestly one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows. As for the reason why, well, there's just something special about it, you know? There's just like, it came out relatively recently, but it still evokes a sort of feeling of nostalgia, if you know what I mean. So, yeah.
For my part, the Cartoon Network series that stands out tall above the rest for me is Adventure Time. While every series is capable of hitting some home runs in world building or character depth, I feel like the most consistent and reoccurring one is in Adventure Time. Adventure Time has tirelessly committed to building out its characters with great backstories and emotional depth that makes you feel like the characters are quite real and truly alive in their world. The series also, time and time again, gets super heavy with its material and manages to touch on topics that you normally don't see in series aimed for a younger audience. Its happy-go-lucky comical style of animation and design easily turning people away from thinking that there's depth to it. But I would say what really makes it special for me is the growth of characters in the series. Characters go through turmoil and actually change from often cataclysmic events that happen to them. It's tiring to watch a character like Ben 10 or Bart Simpson only change and grow up when the story requires them to, only for them to rubber band back to their usual baseline self. The best example of this in Adventure Time is Finn, wherein he develops a big brother-like relationship, for instance, with a plant-like magical copy of himself made from wicked magic that's named Fern. Becomes apparent later on that Fern is very out of control and rash when trying to do the hero work that Finn does, causing the two to butt heads a lot and eventually fight, and in said fight, Finn accidentally kills Fern, the consequences of which causes Finn, for the rest of the series, to take violence and fighting that much more seriously than he did as his usual swashbuckling hero self prior to the event. All in all, though, these factors, and many more minor ones that I take too long to talk about, caused me to consistently revisit Adventure Time. And I highly recommend it to anyone seeking a new, lively and adventurous show to watch.
Alright, I was asked to talk about Cartoon Network, my favorite one, and I had to think, 'cause I never grew up with Cartoon Network. I just saw some of the shows on the television that we had, the station. But that was Courage, The Cowardly Dog Show, Kids Next Door, Samurai Jack, yes, Samurai Jack, and Johnny Bravo, a little bit of Johnny Bravo. It wasn't until I was a teenager that I started watching Cartoon Network, and boy, did I become a fan. Of the old original ones, Courage the Cowardly Dog will always be the top. Just, it is glorious. The style is so fresh, and just the characters, and it just feels disgusting, but you want to watch more. How perfect is that? Okay, Samurai Jack will always be in my heart at some place, and that one will always be one of the top of the old ones. I just really do love the story, and it took them 15 years or so. I don't remember completely, but it took half of my life to get the last season, and that is a fucking dedication. That is a dedication that you actually managed to do for the fans. And boy, was that ending beautiful. Of the new shows, I will have to say Gumball and Darwin. The reason I started to love it was one scene and one line that Darwin said, "It's so bleak it could be Danish." I fell in love. They made fun of the Danish people. How good is that? I hate the Danish, but that's just me. But that's part of being Icelandic. Anyway, then there is another one that is... Oh, what was the name? Oh yeah, I love Steven Universe, but man, I could not watch the first season. It was so slow, and I would... this would be my most favorite show ever if Steven Universe, main character, wasn't in it. God, I can't stand this guy. But the story is great. The lore is fantastic. The art style, the songs, just mwah. The main character. So that's why it gets low for me. But everyone always loves it and all of it. And I'm like, can I just get the gems? I like the gems. Give me better note. The shows have been so good lately. But then it just declined as a whole. Especially Disney. But we are talking about Cartoon Network. And it's, I don't know. These have been my favorite, and even though I didn't grow up with them, I really do love cartoons. And Cartoon Network was a fun thing. And when the shows were showed on Boomerang, I watched it like the whole night for a few weeks because I just couldn't get enough of it. So after a while, I had seen all of it. Anyway, I did this for my friend, and he asked me about Cartoon Network and what was my favorite one. I still have to say Courage the Cowardly Dog. It was glorious. And you never know where it started and never know where it ended. Just a perfect story like Tom and Jerry. Anyway, bye!
I've been watching Cartoon Network for a long time. I remember a lot of what we consider classics now when they were starting out. Cow Chicken, Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd and Eddy. I remember a lot of them as pilots on What a Cartoon. So I could talk for a really long time about cartoons from Cartoon Network. I'm going to focus on my two favorites. They're my favorites for very different reasons, but they're still my favorites. One is Codename Kids Next Door. The other is Samurai Jack. Both are incredibly imaginative. Both have a very unique art style. One's fairly more light-hearted than the other. The other one's more action-packed. But what really clinches these two for me is they got to finish their story. Eventually. Yeah, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Kids Next Door is wonderfully imaginative about the world, how the kids view it. It's actually quite cynical about how everyone just hates kids and just actively trying to make kids miserable. It's kind of really bitter. But, the kids fight back with a vengeance. It's hilarious. And as the seasons progress, they actually start making a more coherent world building, a plot, and really developed. Shame the end was a bit rushed, but, they got to end, which is more than a lot of shows do get, unfortunately. Samurai Jack is my favorite work by Genndy Tartakovsky. I'm probably saying the name wrong. It's his unique line art, his unique style, his coloring, his fun way to get around censorship by making everyone he slices up to bits either robot that explodes or an alien that doesn't have blood. So, aside from this final season, which was Adult Swim, which took a long time to get greenlit, but our boy Genndy stuck with it until he got to finish his story. Finished it on a bittersweet note, but he finished it, goddammit. That's what important. But yeah, if I would recommend anyone to showcase the wide spectrum of hilarity that is Cartoon Network, I'd go for Kids Next Door for imagination and comedy, and Samurai Jack for action-packed Western-style cartoons.
After watching Batman the animated series as a little child, I was thrilled and excited to watch another series with a similar theme and Teen Titans deliver in that area. Growing up, I watched a lot of Cartoon Network every time I got the chance, but Teen Titans for me is the first series that was broadcasted on Cartoon Network that I needed to watch every episode to gain full and proper knowledge of the whole story. The series is in short summarized about a team of superheroes called Teen Titans, straight from DC Comics, and tells of their antics, challenges, and difficulties with either a villain of the week or a returning threat who will strike hard at the end of each season. The characters are based on known superheroes from the comics, but they some have been casted with stereotypical tendencies that I love. For example, you have the Robin, who is the leader of the pack and is like a popular kid that everyone wants to be with. Cyborg, that could be described as the football jock. And then we have Raven, the stereotypical goth, who wants to be like reclusive and alone with her own thoughts. Then you have Starfire, the foreign exchange students with like unknown knowledge about the universe and quirky individuals about new things that are uncommon to her. And then of course like Beast Boy, who can be considered like the class clown with always a joke, but always a serious manner of it. But the heroes are not as good as their villains, and Teen Titans has great variety of dynamic villains that shape the characters. And as an individual series, it really gave us a plethora of unknown or not very popular characters from DC Comics. It sounds like scraping the barrel, but every character is fully fleshed, has ambition, weaknesses, or other distinct personality that distinct them from one another. Every season ended with a climactic season finale where at the end of the day the heroes become triumphant, but not without facing trials and many failures on the way. What makes Teen Titans special, of course, is whether or not with top-notch comic book action and a unique style of animation that blend both Western animation and anime, is it can both blend comedy and drama at the same serious level. There are some episodes which are total madness and may be considered detours in the linear storyline, but it makes it so much rewarding in the end when the villains in season finale almost or literally take over the world. Slade, for example, makes Robin fall under his leadership. The Brotherhood of Evil are ready to strike with their world domination plan, but the best finale in my area are when Trigon dominates the Earth, and when Terra, the Earth telekinetic, betrays the Titans, along with Slade bringing the Titans to their knees. I remember seeing the ads on Cartoon Network about the end storyline, about this huge payoff and how can the Titans fix the destruction that Trigon has wreaked upon the Earth. It was huge, and that was something not kid at the time could miss. Teen Titans stand out in its unique way on its way. It's that although it is a cartoon show with comic action and various key characters, it is not afraid to delve into serious matters. It is very sincere when a show meant for children and young adults tackles difficult issues and taboo that brings up questions, difficult emotions, and actually treats the viewer with respect and like an adult. There are themes of depression, bottling up feelings, xenophobia, PTSD, racism, mourning, and loss. That is like some serious matter that is not very common in cartoons or otherwise, showing wacky characters or funny scenarios. No, it's like blended with this psychological elements and show them how it can be tackled and gives a good example for serious matters that some people don't even know how to handle. Teen Titans is a must-watch show towards being an important part in the Cartoon Network canon, because it's a show that tells well-written stories, fleshed-out characters, an example for series that tackles serious matter along with kick-ass action and laughable comedy. Teen Titans.
Hi, I'm here to talk about Megas XLR, a Cartoon Network TV show from about 2004. It was a great show growing up with. Very, very stupid. Like really, really stupid. But the fun kind of stupid. The stupid you want as a kid. Like, just creative, great monsters and wacky adventures and traveling to other planets, and growing up not realizing, but there were a lot of references to old anime and a lot of older cartoons and sci-fi that I really recommend watching Megas XLR. But the plot is basically about a fat loser that accidentally finds a giant robot from the future. And with his friends, he, fixes it up and replaces the destroyed head with a very nice car. So it's a giant robot with a car for a head. And, what more for our premise as a 10-year-old kid do you need than that to just love the show? Also, there's a girl that comes from the future and, joins him on his adventures and, tries to guide him to be, a force for good, a hero instead of just a fat, stupid slob that only focuses on getting slushies, playing video games, and getting Philly cheesesteaks, which are good food, but, there's more to life. And his cynical, skinny friend that only cares about getting babes and money. And, yeah, that's, the basic premise of the show. Well, you also have like recurring characters, like recurring villains, like voiced by great voice actors, like Bruce Campbell as, well, basically just Bruce Campbell, like a floating head. It's hilarious. Also, squid people that like wear like robot armor that like gives them arms and legs, and it's basically a mech cartoon with wacky adventures. There are many great episodes about Megas. There is the WWE episode where he like goes to a giant coliseum, and it's basically just World Wrestling but with giant robots. Great episode. He buys like an old video game where he doesn't know how to figure it out, but it turns out it's actually ancient alien tech, and it's a prison, like a dimensional prison for like the most dangerous monsters and criminals throughout galactic history, and he just accidentally releases them all and then has to fight them. The slushy episode where he's just trying to get a slushy, but every goddamn time he's about to get a slushy, the 7-Eleven just gets vaporized by some giant evil like spider robot, but he just does not want to fight it. Bruce Campbell is one of my favorite actors, and he's just amazing as a return villain in the show. It's always stupid, like when he's on screen, especially because it's just framed after his head, so it's just like, and he's like Murdoch from Marvels, and so he's just like, hanging there, just like. So it's great. There is a lot to say about the show, and just lasted for about 2 seasons before being cancelled, sadly. Still today, it is one of the shows I most want a remake or a continuance or a relaunch. It was just a great show, great creativity, and it was just a lot of fun. And I kind of miss shows like this that are just stupid, action-packed, manly shows, because even though the characters themselves aren't like, the super masculine, but they're still guys, they're having guy fun, robots blowing shit up, wrestling, stuff like that, and it's done in a great way.
Space Ghost Coast to Coast is a show about Space Ghost who has a show. He's a talk show host, so he's in space and he does like interviews with people. So yeah, that's the show. It's kind of surrealistic, and yeah, don't know what much else to say.
Hello, I'm a pathetic loser, here to talk about old cartoons that nobody remembers unless you're getting old and forgetting what happiness feels like. What I want to talk about are what I would consider the 3 best Cartoon Network's cartoons: Johnny Bravo, Eddy, and Samurai Jack. Because I have decent taste, unlike most people on the internet. Let's start with Johnny Bravo. Why not? I mean, what can I really say about Johnny Bravo? It's practically just PG Duke Nukem. I mean, think about it. Both muscular, dumb-ass blondes who just care about the babes. Including the misogyny and everything! In all seriousness though, this show is just funny and has some charming characters. And although it does get a bit worse during some of the final seasons, but not every show is perfect. Unless your show's name is Villain Saga, of course. By the way, as a little bit of a side note, can we please get another Duke Nukem game? Please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you, please, can we get another Duke Nukem game? Like, one that's actually good, and that has kept the farthest fuck away from the greasy man who saw Randy Pitchford. Can we fucking please? Next one is Ed, Edd and Eddy, aka the funniest cartoon that has ever goddamn existed. The show stars Ed spelled with 2 D's, also known as Double D, also known as what I gave your mom last night. Hey!
Kill yourself immediately!
and Eddy. The show itself is just extremely funny. Like, seriously, that fucking episode where Ed has a fucking rock in his shoe is still one of the funniest fucking episodes I've ever goddamn seen in my life. Just by thinking about it makes me fucking laugh. The motherfucker eats a whole fucking slide because he has a fucking rock in his shoe. The fuck did his parents feed this man? Also, the series ended with an absolutely amazing movie, which was not only funny, but also extremely heartwarming. Honestly, I couldn't ask for a better end for such a great series. And last but not least, Samurai Jack. I mean, what do I need to say? It's Samurai motherfucking Jack. If you don't have this as your number one, or at least your top three, I will find you. I will find where you live, and I will put a fucking rock in your shoe. Pretty much almost everything about this show is just, masterpiece. The animation, the characters, the story, just almost everything about it. The only real bad thing I'd say about it is that it took fucking forever to actually complete. And also the ending was a bit rushed. But hey, not like I said earlier, no show is perfect. Unless you're Villain Saga. A few honorable mentions I will give to Ben 10, because the Omnitrix is still one of the coolest weapons or gizmos in all of anything ever. Star Wars, the Clone Wars, for making the prequels actually somewhat fucking good. Teen Titans, because of its great animation, great characters, great story, and, you know, getting my interest in goth girls. The only reason why it doesn't make my top 3 is because it doesn't have an ending. Yeah. And Foster's, because of Frankie. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. Also, by the way, JK, you up and trolled the best show on Cartoon Network ever is The Annoying Orange. Yes, The Annoying Orange. That's clearly the best fucking show ever made. And it also includes my favorite non-controversial YouTuber, Tobaskis, who did absolutely nothing wrong. Totally. Don't look it up. You trust me. You do not want to look it up. Just trust me, okay? As you can clearly see, I have superior taste and all. Now, if I could excuse myself, I'm about to indulge myself in my favorite activity. Simping for virtual women.
Oh shit, it actually worked. Yeah, that's all, folks.
That's all!